get started in a minute. Just checking messages and stuff.
Ancient Egypt, and much of what I'm going to show you is work that could not have been done by the dynastic Egyptians. So according to conventional archaeology, all of the works of ancient Egypt were created more or less between 2500 BC and let's say the time of Christ. But some of this work would have been impossible to have been done by the dynastic people, starting with the Great Pyramid itself. 2.3 million to 2.5 million multi-ton blocks of limestone with a core of granite. The granite comes from Aswan, and the limestone is actually from the area. So according to conventional academics, the Great Pyramid was constructed over the course of 25 or maybe 30 years during the time of Khufu. And if that's true, that means that the blocks would have to be cut, moved, and set into place every 2 minutes. So that's clearly impossible. So obviously what we're looking at is a construction that was found by the dynastic people and then adopted by them and renamed by them. And here you see incredible weathering patterns on the surface of the Great Pyramid. The casing stone, of course, to a great extent is gone. And this weathering, I've been told, is much more than the time period that we think. So this is an early indication that the Great Pyramid is much more ancient than what we've been taught in school. And here again, even more weathering of the surfaces. This would not simply be the result of wind and sand, but we also see the possibility in the darkened areas of heat, like intense heat, striking the surface of the exterior of the Great Pyramid. Quite a mystery. Also, this is the floor on the outside of the Great Pyramid, and you can see that originally the stones interlocked perfectly together, some of the slabs being more than 40 tons in weight. And there are a series of shafts outside the Great Pyramid and in fact all over the Giza Plateau that presently descend 40, 60, 80 feet. But because when you go down farther, you find sand, it's quite possible that these shafts are thousands upon thousands of years old, could be originally have been hundreds of feet deep, and yet over the course of time with sand blowing, they gradually started to fill up. But we'll also see evidence of machining marks, and some of these shafts, when you go more or less out of bounds from where most of the tourists go, they are 14 feet wide by 14 feet, carved into the bedrock. We also find machining marks, as you can see down here, on granite surfaces. This is part of a causeway area outside the Great Pyramid. It's actually not granite, it's basalt. And the basalt is from at least 300 miles away. So we're going to see not only amazing craftsmanship, but the fact that much of the stone was moved from great distances. And the question is, how was that done? And since for most of their time, the dynastic people only had Bronze Age technology, how is it possible that they could carve into a much harder stone such as this basalt? And so here I am pointing to obvious saw marks. Basalt is 7 out of 10 in terms of hardness, with diamond being 10. These saw marks appear, the saws themselves appear to have cut through these surfaces very efficiently. So we're probably looking at diamond level technology, and diamond level technology was not created until the late 19th century AD. So how old are these cut marks? And no, they are not recent. They are ancient. We also find that some of the surfaces are peeling off, as if intense heat has been applied. This would not simply be sand and wind and rain, but the baking of the surface of the stone, making it separate from the core. So over the course of time, now it's literally peeling off. Also, some of the casing stones, this is the second pyramid, and this is red granite. And the red granite comes from Aswan, which is 500 miles away. You can see at some point in time, someone was trying to make chisel marks into it to break pieces off. That could very well be after dynastic times, during the construction of the city of Cairo. Cairo did not exist, more or less, during the dynastic times of Egypt, but is a later city built by maybe the Christians in the beginning and then the Islamic period. So it's the weathering of these surfaces. Some of these stone blocks of limestone are 40 to 60 tons in weight. very well be after dynastic times, during the construction of the city of Cairo. Cairo did not exist, more or less, during the dynastic times of Egypt, but is a later city built by maybe the Christians in the beginning and then the Islamic period. So it's the weathering of these surfaces.
Maybe the Christians in the beginning.
Limestone are 40 to 60.
See, this is I like Brian Foster because he goes out here and he really does like hands-on research, bro. He really does. He goes out here, but he's not looking at the people. You know what I'm saying? He's looking at the stones and looking at the cut marks and looking at the weathering and erosion, the heat damage, the size, the scale, the distance, all measurable things. But when it comes to the people and the culture, he always tries to insert like European phenotypes in there. And he knows these people weren't around at that time. He knows it. But see, when European researchers go out and study these structures and realize they're so old that white people weren't around at that time, it fucking scares them. And so they always try to find a way to put themselves that far back in antiquity, and it really doesn't work. It doesn't pan out. You know what I'm saying? The timeline isn't proper that way.
Tons in weight, and the weathering is extremely excessive. Originally, they were cased in granite. The granite is gone. We don't know where it is. But this weathering, the extent of this weathering is very suspicious. And then on the third pyramid, we also see that this is granite. And notice the pillowed surfaces. This looks very similar to some of the megalithic walls we find in Peru, as well as these knobs or these protrusions. Supposedly the protrusions were done by the original sculptors to be able to raise the blocks and set them into place. But if that's the case, then why are knobs missing from a number of them? So we don't honestly know what the knobs were for. Then we go to the main museum in Cairo, and the box on the right is from the 4th dynasty. You can see it's very rough. It's in granite. It's covered with hieroglyphics. Again, very crude execution. And so it's possible that this is from the 4th dynasty.
I just woke up not too long ago.
Done with Dorite stone hammers.
My fucking back hurting,
and maybe meteorite.
I don't know if I pulled something. I went to the gym, not yesterday morning, but the morning before, and I just did a regular back routine, and I was out all morning with the realtor and everything and running around like all day. And later that afternoon, got home and just laid on the couch and took a nap. And I got up, my fucking back was killing me, son. Like, from a nap, I threw my back out while I was sleeping. So I ain't go to the gym yesterday morning. And so all day yesterday, my fucking back is killing me. So I wound up just laying down real early yesterday evening and wound up going to sleep like fucking 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock or some dumbass shit. And then I just woke up like an hour ago. Now I'm wide the fuck awake, yo. My fucking back is still killing me, dude. Like, I don't know what the fuck this is. And it's not like my lower back. That shit is high up. It's like in between my shoulder blades almost. It's weird, dude. Weird. I've never had a pain like this in that area before. I don't know. This shit doesn't go away in a couple days, man. I'm going to see my fucking doctor. I know I'm getting old. I don't think I really like lifted too heavy on back day. I don't think I like overexerted myself. So I don't know what the fuck this is. I mean, I still got full range of movement with my fucking shoulders and arms, legs, and everything. I can still walk around. It's sore and it's painful, but it's not really stopping me from doing anything. So, but I still don't like it. So if this shit don't go away, if this shit don't go away in a day or so, I'm going to get fucking checked out. anything I do is fucking uncomfortable. Sitting down, standing up, laying down, it's like, what the fuck? I figured, hell, I might as well go paint and see if I can distract myself.
Chisels, because meteorite material is very high in hard nickel. But then the one on the left, Egyptologists will admit, is older. You can see it's bigger, it's more finely finished. The lid, hammers, and crude execution what the knobs were for. Then we go to the main museum in Cairo, and the box on the right is from the 4th dynasty. You can see it's very rough. It's in granite. It's covered with hieroglyphics. Again, very crude execution. And so it's possible that this is from the 4th dynasty, done with dolerite stone hammers and maybe meteorite chisels, because meteorite material is very high in hard nickel. But then the one on the left, Egyptologists will admit, is older. You can see it's bigger, it's more finely finished. The lid is from the same stone as the box itself. So the one on the left is an example of lost ancient high technology and is older than the dynastic Egyptians. They simply found it and recycled it. And this just shows you the smoothness of the surface, the strange damage marks on it. But when you look on the inside, it's very smooth. The corners are slightly rounded. And this would be something that would be very difficult to make in the 21st century with our technology. So there's no way that that was made during the dynastic times. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see two different types of technology, that of the dynastic people and that of the pre-dynastic. So here, this just gives you another simple comparison between the dynastic box on the left and the pre-dynastic older box on the right. Notice I don't use the term sarcophagus. The one on the left was a sarcophagus, but the one on the right was larger, and its original function is completely unknown to this day. And inside the museum, there's a box that was being made. And again, the lid was always cut from the same piece of stone as the box itself. So here we see actually a technical mistake where the lid of the box was being cut, and then the saw started to move inwards into the box, and that caused the lid to snap off, or at least 1/3 of the lid, and the project was simply abandoned. Then on the lid of another box, we see these saw marks going this way, and that could very well be a type of bandsaw in use. But again, since it's cutting through granite, it would have to have diamonds encased or embedded in the saw blade, and that was not invented until about 100 years ago. So how was this done, and by whom? Then we have the intriguing schist disc, which the academics call a lotus bowl, but in fact was probably part of a machine of some kind, maybe an impeller. The unfortunate thing is that it was repaired by the museum staff. It was found broken, and so they crudely repaired it, and when it was originally made, it was probably technically perfect. And this gives you an above view of what it looks like. The 3 lobes of it are not angled in any way, so an impeller would tend to have an angle blade in order to push or pull air or water, so it makes it a very, very curious artifact. We also have other artifacts like this lobed bowl. You see the perfect circle in the middle. This is made of the same material as the so-called schist disc. It's actually a kind of metamorphosed clay. So it's quite possible that if you're able to take it out of the display case and tap it, that it would make a ringing sound as if it's resonating to a specific frequency. Also, other objects made of hard stone were found in the same cache as this and the schist bowl they were all found at Saqqara, and not 10 or 20 were found, but between 30 and 40,000 of them were found. And this
Carl,
could only
what's
have
up,
been
man, from
made,
Newcastle?
at least initially, on some kind of lathe. And that would involve a motor. This could not be done by a hand lathe with somebody with pedals turning it. This had to have been done high speed and cut likely with diamond tools. Then we find plunge drill holes. Again, that technology was not invented until the late 19th century AD, cutting into the side of the top of a box made of granite. And then a quartzite box. Quartzite is metamorphosed sandstone and also has the hardness of 7 out of 10. And the lid, in this case, locks into the box. So that could only have been done using very advanced technology. And a pyramidon. Look at the smooth surfaces. There's no way that the dynastic Egyptians could have achieved that brilliance of a surface, because that would involve sandpaper with diamond dust. And diamonds, of course, were found in great abundance in South Africa, probably in the 18th and 19th century. But the important thing to know is that the tool has to be harder than the material. So this is in fact syenite, which is a type of granite, much finer grained than normal granite, a little bit harder, and the cartouches and other hieroglyphics carved into the surface are relatively crude compared to the flat surfaces. So this object was found, probably already damaged by something, and then the dynastic Egyptians carved the hieroglyphics into the surface. Then, when we get to the Osirion, which is at Abydos, if you look at this stone, this big stone, look at the horizontal cut mark. This, again, is in a piece of quartzite, and so that would have to be a saw utilizing diamond-level technology. So the Osirion is clearly older than the dynastic Egyptians and was constructed on purpose underground. The vertical columns are made of syenite, which comes again from Aswan, or the eastern desert in the Sinai, and the wall to the left is made of quartzite from Cairo, several hundred miles away. And the Osirion is very complicated. This is an area somewhat off limits, and what you're looking at on the left-hand side is a shaft that actually gradually rises up to the surface. So I think the function of the Osirion could have been an ancient water pump of some kind, pumping water from underground,
really
because the Osirion usually has water.
This is why I hate fucking lines. Oh my god. You wanna know why I charge so much for these fucking paintings? Look at the lines. Oh my Jesus Christ, Mary and Joseph. Oh, these lines are gonna be the fucking death of me, I swear. Just pull out a ruler. Fuck a fucking ruler, man. It should not be this hard to draw a fucking straight line. It's just a fucking line. Oh, man. And I sit here and I slave. I fucking slave. And I sweat. And my hands cramp up trying to get a fucking line. Oh my, why do I even do this? Why do I even paint shit with so many straight lines in it? It's ridiculous. I don't know why I torture myself like this.
You can see the green water, but previously, before they built the High Aswan Dam, water levels would come up and down inside the Osirion. So it could have acted originally, it would have had a roof over top of it, it would have been completely buried and sealed off. So it could have been an ancient water pump as compared to the Egyptologist's explanation that it was some kind of symbolic tomb, which is an expression they use in excess. Whenever they find something mysterious, they call it a tomb. Some were used as tombs, but some weren't. And again, this just shows you, luckily on this day there was no water in it. And again, the giant granite columns, some damaged by later quarrying, and then the quartzite wall in the background with the interesting pillowing that we also see at polygonal walls in ancient Peru. And then look at the cruder construction above it. That's probably from dynastic times. That would be above the roof of this ancient sealed unit. And here we have a scale model of Karnak. Karnak is one of the biggest ancient complexes in Egypt, and it is a combination of dynastic construction and then pre-dynastic. You can see on the left 1, 2, 3 obelisks, then 2 more, then 2 more, and I believe there are 2 more. And look at their relative positioning. It's almost like they're designed and set up in a grid-like pattern. Now they're made of granite, 1 piece of granite each, in some cases weighing up to 400 tons. So the Bronze Age dynastic Egyptians could not have constructed or carved out, moved, and set these into place. So they are a pre-dynastic aspect that the dynastic people found, and then they built their structures in sandstone, which is a softer material, around it. Now, we see lots of catastrophic damage. Again, this is the base of one of the obelisks, and you can see that the surfaces here on the east side, the weathering is extreme. The higher up you go, the less weathering there is. And it could be, according to Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist, that 12,000 years ago, there were plasma bursts that erupted from the sun and struck some of these lower surfaces and blew the surfaces off. So from my estimation, this plasma ball would have been approximately 60 feet in diameter and would have gone straight down what is called the sacred original passageway, creating destruction as it went.
What?
Also here, to the right of that camera, is a saw mark cut into the granite. And that had to have been done with a machine. The hieroglyphics were done later using simple hand tools, but that is clear indication of lost ancient high technology cutting into the granite. And then we find many core drill holes, some of them this size. Core drills with diamonds embedded in the front were only invented in the early 20th century AD or maybe late 19th century. So these again are artifacts from pre-dynastic times, and they are in great abundance in places like Karnak and lesser known places like Abu Sir, which most tourists never visit. But it's a wonderment area of lots of signs of lost ancient high technology. So here's a human hand inside to show you the diameter of it. Core drills of that scale were probably only created in the late 20th century AD, because you would have to have an enormous drill powering that. So once again, in the lower areas at Karnak, in the oldest part, we see heat scorching of the surfaces. This is granite, and it's as if the surface has been basically burnt off. So that's another indication of very high heat in ancient times existing at Karnak. And then this intriguing object showing major damage. And it is a type of alabaster, which is not that hard, but originally this was one solid piece of stone. And there are no quarries of this kind of alabaster in Egypt, so it had to have been moved from a quarry somewhere else, possibly Turkey, and an estimated weight of that when it was original, even if it had been shaped at the quarry and then moved here, would be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 tons. Again, it was one piece of stone. It doesn't look like it now because it's been repaired. And this shows you the inner surfaces, that they're actually curved, which is quite interesting. And the hieroglyphics on the surfaces are quite crude. So the dynastic people carved the hieroglyphics into this ancient thing, which originally had no artwork on it whatsoever. And that's what we're going to see in the pre-dynastic work, is you don't see artwork whatsoever. But during the dynastic times, you see, of course, hieroglyphics and lots of art. And once again, showing the damage to the lower part of one of the obelisks. This is actually on the, I think, the western side. So the eastern sides in general were more heavily damaged than the other sides. The western side actually the least damaged. And so this tells us that the force that struck Karnak came from the east, and quite possibly at dawn, almost like the sun would rise and a fireball would strike through the complex. Also, the main axis is supposed to be perfectly east to west, but it's 23 degrees off. And that could indicate that the planet was at a different axis prior to 12,000 years ago, when the cataclysm, we believe, occurred. So again, more of this strange damage at Karnak. You can see that the material, the granite, is basically sloughing off, and that indicates once again that rapid high heat struck the surface, causing the surface to expand, and over the course of time, the surface layers began to peel off. And again, at the lower part on the left, or actually where I'm pointing, you can see another indication of a core drill hole. And now we're actually almost at the end of the main axis in Karnak. And once again, we're going to see extreme heat damage on the stone surfaces. So this is granite, and you can see that it's basically falling apart, as if it has been hit by high heat in the distant past and is now gradually crumbling. The different types of stone react to heat in different ways. So here again on the left-hand side, we have another piece of granite that's crumbling. And then in the background is a giant slab of the alabaster, and its surface has basically exploded off. But on the backside, we do see more core drill holes. And again, these can't be things that were done during the dynastic period. So this is another specimen of something that was pre-dynastic, found at Karnak when the dynastic Egyptians arrived in the area. That was a tendency. They would find an ancient structure that preceded them and turn it into a sacred site. Then we're at the Aswan Quarry. And the Aswan Quarry is a granite quarry. That's where most of the granite from Egypt was taken from. And here you see dynastic period attempts to break the stone. Slots were created with very hardened bronze that would take a long time to do, possibly even with iron later on. And then they would put wooden shims into the recesses and pour hot water on them. And over the course of time, that would cause cracks to happen. So you'd have a very rough surface created afterwards. But contrast that on the right, which again is the indication of how the dynastic people broke the stone, with these strange scoop marks on the left. And the scoop marks are a clear sign of ancient technology that was prior to the dynastic people. And we're going to see more examples of this as we go along here. So here, more of these scoop marks, and this is the unfinished obelisk at Aswan, which, had it been completed, would have weighed 1,200 tons. And that's what it looks like. Look at the size of the people compared to the size of the obelisk. it was never completed, which is a mystery. And the other question is, even if they had been able to cut the whole thing out, how would they raise it out of the pit that it's in, since the surface is not flat, it's very much rolling. And granite is actually quite brittle, so it would have to be perfectly balanced as it was taken out of the quarry location. Otherwise, it would snap easily into two pieces. And here you see the, the Western Trench, and again, of the unfinished obelisk. And again, these interesting scooping tool marks. Unlikely hand tools. The standard explanation is that they had hardened stone hammers that they used to pound away to remove the granite, but the pounders were only slightly harder than the granite itself. So even creating a channel like that would take hundreds of years, if it was even possible. And here, this is a smaller obelisk that was never completed. And you see these interesting deep scoop marks into it. I think those were done by some kind of machine. There's no way you'd have a stone pounder and you'd be pushing in like this trying to remove granite from the surface, because we actually experimented with that. And I filmed it, and it looks quite stupid. Then we see here at, I think this is Karnak as well, again, extreme erosion of limestone surfaces, blackening of the surfaces. Wind erosion would simply cause the white limestone to weather, and it would still be white looking, but the blackening indicates intense heat. And then also these incredible shaft systems at Saqqara in Egypt, and these almost machining carving marks going deep into the bedrock. There are many of these shafts. Some of them are 16 feet by 16 feet in size, and they probably connect to a tunnel system farther down. Also, we have this scorching here. You can see this darkening orange and even brown and black. So again, I think that's an indication of possible solar plasma striking Saqqara. And solar plasma striking a surface like that would vaporize all organic life. So if there were any plants living there, any people, any animals, they would be instantaneously vaporized, and the area would not be habitable for probably thousands of years. That is another indication that there were those that did the early construction maybe 12,000 years ago. Then a series of cataclysms struck, and then the area was uninhabitable until maybe 5,000 years ago. Also, we see more devastating damage done to a small pyramid at Saqqara.
Devastating damage done.
As if the surfaces have exploded off. Some would say this is damage by vandals, but it looks more to me like this is intense heat and literally blew the top of this small pyramid off. And here we see more examples of probable heat scorching, shattering of the stone, and it does appear that this little pyramid was hit at the very top by a very intense burst of heat. And here again, this incredible weathering into the surface, and the blackening of the surface, the intense damage. This is actually the casing stone that's still on the lower part of it. But that weathering could not simply have been done by wind and sand. It's something much more devastating occurred here a long, long time ago. And I think that the dynastic people found this little pyramid. They didn't try to repair it, but they did use the interior as a tomb. So inside, we see this box, which could have been used as a tomb. And again, it has strange scorching on the interior. We couldn't really figure out what kind of stone it was. It's about, interior space is about 9 feet long. It would weigh in the region of 60 to 80 tons. And it could be basalt or possibly syenite, which is a type of granite, which again, could not have been shaped efficiently during dynastic times. And this shows you that originally the lid of the box would have locked into it. So not just a lid that went on top, but three-dimensionally locked into it. And that's just one of the curious little aspects that I was looking at in this case. Then also at Saqqara, we have the step pyramid of Zoser. And most Egyptologists think that this was one of the earliest attempts of constructing a pyramid, and that later on, once they had perfected their technique, they built the Great Pyramid. But I and others believe that actually the Great Pyramid existed, as did some of the others, and this was a way of the dynastic people trying to copy without having the technological capability of replicating the Great Pyramid itself. They had to build it in a step manner. And next, we're still at Saqqara, and we are underground at the Serapeum, which is a series of 2 tunnels carved into the bedrock, and what we find here, and hundreds of feet long. One curious thing is there is no soot or other kind of organic darkened material on the surface. So these tunnels were completely pitch black, and there's no way that the dynastic Egyptians made it, because they had at best torches of some kind. No one's bothered to try to clean the surfaces, so this is what these tunnels have always looked like. So the impression is that they were made using high technology, and that artificial lighting would have to have been done in order to make them. And what we find inside of these tunnels are 25 plus stone boxes weighing 100 tons apiece. So this is one of the Serapeum boxes, and the material is syenite that probably came from Aswan, 500 miles away. The lid is 30 tons, the box is 70 tons. And the sculpting or carving of the hieroglyphics on the surface is much cruder than the box itself. So these boxes were found by the dynastic people, and then they etched the hieroglyphics into the surfaces. This just shows you, again, the sense of precision. The lid would hermetically seal the box. The lid of the box was made from the same piece of stone as the box itself. So originally it would have been 200 tons, and then when completed, 100 tons. So how was it moved from Aswan? How was it moved to the location? How was it moved into the tunnel? And then how was it moved into the recess that we presently find it in? So once again, this just gives you a sense of scale. You know, there's a standard 6-foot human next to one of these giant boxes. One was never finished, and it's in the other hallway. So this is the roughened shape, halfway down the hall. It never made it to its final location, which was a niche. And then we find the lid behind it, about 100 feet away. So this is like trapped in time. Why did they stop work here? We see evidence in many locations of a megalithic nature where work suddenly stops. And so I think that all of this sudden stoppage was as a result of an ancient cataclysmic event about 12,000 years ago. So there's the lid, roughened out, never finished, and by the time the box and the lid make it into the niche, how were they planning on doing the finishing work to make it a hermetical perfect seal without having proper lighting and without having advanced technology? Then we are at Tanis, which is located in northern Egypt. What you can obviously see is that this granite lid was recycled, because you see partial hieroglyphs and then they abruptly end. And then the box itself is made of quartzite. So this is a recycling effort during dynastic times of pre-dynastic workmanship. So Tanis is basically devoid of life. If you look in the background, you see beautiful farmland of the Nile Delta, but almost nothing can grow at Tanis. And as you walk on the surface, It's like walking on the moon. It's like walking on flour. So I think this again was a place that was struck by an ancient cataclysm involving heat, quite possibly plasma ejection from the sun, and it basically decimated the site. It would have vaporized any life forms, and there are a handful of thorny plants that presently live there, and nothing else. It's like a wasteland. Also, the hieroglyphics on the left look like they were done with a machine, whereas the ones on the right look like they were done by hand. So the hieroglyphics on the left are pre-dynastic, the ones on the right are dynastic, and that gives us the strong possibility that hieroglyphics were not created by the dynastic people, but were an inheritance, and they were reinterpreted by the dynastic people. Same symbols, different symbolism. This piece of quartzite was struck by intense heat because it should be a cream color, but you can see some of the surfaces are melted. So that tells us, again, high heat at Tanis. And then the right side of this face is burnt off. Again, this is quartzite. So this is a pre-dynastic sculpture that was struck by the cataclysmic heat and was found, as most of Tanis was found, the sculptures and what was left of the obelisk were found buried underground, not buried on purpose, but a cataclysmic event that caused the soil to blow up into the air, come back down and settle, tons upon tons of it, and then cover the site over, to be discovered by the dynastic people and then occupied. And then most of these works were then unearthed in the 19th and 20th century AD. This is just a detail again of the burnt surfaces of this sculpture, with pieces literally being blown off by the intense heat. And another stone that should be creamy colored, like on the left side, but has been distorted, and also some of the material or surfaces turned into glass. This is a foot. The original sculpture, if it was one piece, would have been 100 feet high. And the quarry at Aswan is 1,000 kilometers to the south. And this was the lid of a giant granite box, again made of the granite from Aswan. This sculpture was blown apart by intense heat, and if you look down where the toes should be, the toes are melted off. And this is a close-up of that. You see the globular glass-like formations. So that was melted by at least 2,000 degrees Celsius. And another sculpture that has been hit by intense heat, darkening the surface, causing melting, causing portions to blow off. Nothing at Tanis is intact. It's all destroyed. Giant sections of obelisks. There were more obelisks at Tanis than anywhere else in Egypt, probably at least 14 or 15, smashed into pieces. Again, you see eroded surfaces. This column would have been one piece originally, more than 30 feet long. And then the dynastic people, finding the remnants of a lost ancient high-tech culture, decided to rebuild some sections. That's what you see here. They took the eroded stones and were able to restack them and then do quite crude repair work in the middle of the right-hand side of that wall. And then there are underground features that we're going to explore on the Giza Plateau. Only recently opened to the public with the Great Pyramid in behind. This is called the Osiris Shaft, and it's a series of shafts that go down 200 feet into the bedrock. The general public has only been allowed in here since November of 2017, and we paid the fee so that we could have private access for 2 hours. And again, there's the second pyramid. So this is the causeway going to the second pyramid, and the entrance is underneath the causeway. So as we go in, we're in the bedrock, And you look up and you see a metal grate. And as you look down, you're looking to the first level, which is 30 feet underground. And this is the ladder. Luckily, the new fangled ladder, because the old one was very rickety. So when you get to the first level, it's about 15 feet wide and 30 feet long. And then you come to the ladder that takes you down to level number 2. And level number 2 is 100 feet down into the bedrock. So now we are 130 feet, underground. And there we find 6 niches in which we find 2 boxes. This stone box is made of what's called dacite, and dacite is not found in Egypt. It's from elsewhere. Likely maybe Turkey or somewhere else, but not in Egypt. So it was moved a huge distance. And the interior is filled, a surface film of this odd black goo, organic-like material. I don't know what it was, but it looks like it literally exploded from the inside, that there was an internal explosion that blew the lid off to the side. And even more so is this one, which is the other box, and you can see the massive crack on the side. So I think this suffered from some kind of internal explosion. So the theory is that this was not originally a sarcophagus, but it was an energy device of some kind that overloaded, and it had an internal explosion. So the final level is another 60 feet underground, and there you can see a pool of water. And in that, there is Yusuf Awiyan standing on a giant stone box weighing, in his estimation, 60 to 80 tons. So when we go back the next time, we're going to measure the dimensions of the box and then measure the dimensions of the shaft and see how much clearance there would have been in order to be able to lower this down 30 feet, then 100 feet, and then 60 feet. And what its function was, again, it was not the symbolic tomb of Osiris. The question is not necessarily what was it used for, but how was it made and by whom? So there is going back up to the surface. And now we're in the Valley Temple, which is located in the region of the Sphinx on the Giza Plateau. Giant slabs of granite from Aswan. And here again, giant slabs that used to be the facing of a core of limestone. But again, look at the extent of the erosion of the limestone. So how many thousands of years ago was the granite removed? And was it removed by somebody to recycle? Or was it blown off by some kind of cataclysmic event? Then we're inside the Valley Temple. And you see these giant vertical granite slabs. There used to be cross beams going across it. Look at the weathering of the surfaces. This actually looks like water weathering. And so that means that this temple may have, in ancient times, had water in it, but the question is, where would the water have come from? But we will get into that when we look at the Sphinx. So now we're approaching the Sphinx with the second pyramid in the background. Notice that I call them the first pyramid, second pyramid, and third pyramid, because I think they had nothing to do with Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. They named themselves, or they named the structures after themselves, but there is no way, shape, or form that they made them. So we have this intriguing thing in front of the Sphinx. You look in that direction, that is the bedrock, but then in between the feet of the Sphinx, you have blocks of stone. And then on the other side, the bedrock. So what that indicates is that these blocks were set into place, and there's a chamber underneath the paws of the Sphinx, according to what Edgar Cayce believed. And then when you look at that rectangular pattern there, that is a rectangular platform that can be taken out at any time. So it's believed that They have found the chamber under the Sphinx. There's at least one chamber discovered actually by Robert Schoch using ground-penetrating radar. And then they did the excavation late at night, and they built this walkway to hide the fact that they have found the chamber, the so-called Hall of Records, under the front paws of the Sphinx. And it has been repaired over the course of thousands upon thousands of years. It's likely that Khufu and Khafre began repairs on the Sphinx, that it is much older, and that is proven by this vertical weathering, which only could have been done with precipitation. And the amount of precipitation it would have taken to do this only existed in Egypt at least 10,000 years ago. So that makes the construction of the Sphinx at a minimum 4,000 years older, or even 5,000 years older than the dynastic people. And that's a close-up of the vertical weathering. The horizontal would have been horizontal would have been sand and wind, vertical, rain. And finally, near the back area, the rump of the Sphinx, there is a piece of rectangular piece of wood that has a grate on it, and it happened to have fallen out the day that we visited. And we looked inside, and there is a metal ladder that goes down inside the Sphinx, making it quite possibly hollow to some degree. So there is at least a shaft inside the Sphinx, and possibly a series of shafts and tunnels. And so the mysteries of ancient Egypt continue. This is at the Ramesseum, located near Luxor. And originally it was a single statue made of one single piece of stone weighing 1,000 tons. And it is in multiple pieces. We see scorch marks on it. We see the peeling off of stone. So this likely as well was a victim of an ancient cataclysm that struck the area, wiped out the first high-tech culture, and then the area was left abandoned until the dynastic Egyptian people arrived some 6 or maybe even 7,000 years later.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Following my previous video, which took a closer look at the Caliph Al-Mamun's so-called forced entry into the Great Pyramid in the 9th century, many will have noticed a curiosity that needs further attention. That of a likely undiscovered vertical shaft at the junction between the descending and ascending corridors of the Great Pyramid. It all centres on what are called the Trial Passages, located just 87 metres to the east of the Great Pyramid and north of the Causeway. When they were first examined by Howard Weiss and John Perring in the 1840s, they were believed to be passages from an abandoned, long-forgotten pyramid or tomb, possibly the underground passages of a fourth subsidiary pyramid of the Great Pyramid. But this certainly isn't the case. Sir Flinders Petrie was the first to point out how these passages are a very precise copy of the passages inside the Great Pyramid. He thought the pyramid builders had built them as a mock-up, a test run, and hence why they have been known ever since as the Trial Passages. The Great Pyramid does have a complex network of passages, but as no other pyramid has an associated trial structure such as this, was it really created for such a purpose? Did the Trial Passages have another reason? Surprisingly, eminent Egyptologists such as Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass agree that there is a striking resemblance between the Great Pyramid and the Trial Passages, and for the first time, it seems that everybody is in agreement that the two are inexplicably linked. In his book, The Complete Pyramids, Lehner says, as Petrie recognised, these passages clearly are a kind of foreshortened copy of the passages in the Great Pyramid. Trial passage widths, heights and angles all mirror those in the Great Pyramid. There is a descending passageway, an ascending passageway, the start of the Grand Gallery and the beginning of the Queen's Chamber passage. Even specific details are not left out. For example, where the ascending passage meets the descending passage, it contracts, just as it does in the Great Pyramid, where the granite plug was fitted. Even around the beginning of the Queen's Chamber passage, there is a contraction for the plug blocks, and the passageways are all finished as well as they are in the Great Pyramid. This is an important structure, and if it was just a trial, why would they bother to finish it so well? It was clearly built to stand the test of time, just like its pyramid counterpart. So why were the trial passages built? For a start, such a construction is unique to the Great Pyramid in that there is no other trial passage system associated with an Egyptian pyramid, which to me discounts it being any sort of trial. If it was standard practice, we would find trial passages alongside every pyramid in Egypt. Orthodox Egyptologists believe that the Great Pyramid is 4th dynasty, and that many more prominent pyramids came before it. So even if the Orthodox view is to be believed, building a trial passage in this instance is rather strange, as they had already been building pyramids for quite some time. So why was it necessary? Of course, I, like many other people, believe that the Great Pyramid, as well as all the Egyptian pyramids, are far older than the 4th dynasty. There is no evidence to suggest that the ancient people used trial passages to construct their monuments. Also, the Great Pyramid's so-called trial passages were all carved out of the Giza bedrock, whereas the majority of the corresponding passages inside the Great Pyramid were formed from masonry, so the same techniques were certainly not being trialed. There is no benefit of carving passages into bedrock if you are going to use a completely different method when building the pyramid itself. Why not just build a miniature version of the pyramid if it was a trial? Wouldn't that help the architect? The contraction of the ascending passageway in the trial passages would have been a very difficult feat to achieve, and virtually useless when repeating this feature with cut stone inside the Great Pyramid. I agree with researcher Mark Foster that these passages could never have functioned as trial passages. Yes, they were built to represent the internal layout of the Great Pyramid. The builders went to great lengths to ensure we could make the connection, but Mark Foster believes that the passages were less about a trial and more of a key to solve the puzzle of the pyramid. For such a key to work, we would have to be left in no doubt as to what the key was pointing to, which is the case in this instance. As noted in my previous video, Mark Foster believes that the Caliph Al-Mamun had used the trial passages to calculate the position of the previously unknown ascending passageway in the Great Pyramid. A stone lintel, indistinguishable from the other roof blocks of the descending passageway, originally covered the entrance to this passage. This entrance was purposefully hidden from view by the pyramid builders, or potentially by later people who sealed up the structure when it went out of use. No other pyramid has chambers reached by ascending up through the structure, and before the discovery of the upper chambers by Al-Mamun, the experience of entering the Great Pyramid was no different from entering, for example, the Red Pyramid. Although its internal chambers are built into the masonry of the structure, they are reached by descending into the pyramid from the entrance. The Khafre and Menkaure pyramids also have chambers that are reached by descending into each respective structure. But thanks to Al-Mamun's discovery, we know that the Great Pyramid is different, and due to the complex arrangement of internal chambers and passageways, the structure, although a mystery, is clearly the most important pyramid in Egypt, and it is no surprise that it is the only pyramid to have an associated so-called trial passage system. Before the discovery of the ascending passageway, it would take an intelligent mind to link the Great Pyramid to the trial passages. Although the angle of the trial descending passageway, as well as the width and height, were identical to those of the Great Pyramid, it was shorter, and also had a branching ascending passageway that at the time wasn't evident in the Great Pyramid. The trial passages, although well made, also led nowhere. They must have puzzled people for millennia, but it does appear that the Caliph Al-Mamun was the first person to solve it. But how did he find the exact position if the trial passages were shorter? Well, it appears that the pyramid builders left as a code. There are a pair of...
I watched a lot of that gameplay, yo. Assassin's Creed is one of my, foundation series. Well, even before that, it was Prince of Persia, and Assassin's Creed got a lot of shit from Prince of Persia, but yeah, Assassin's Creed was a really good series. I haven't played the Origins yet. Oh my God, it's taking forever to straighten these lines out and to try to get these books to look kind of proportionate a little bit. Yeah. Kind of make them look straight a little bit. Man, the more I look at these lines, all these shits are fucking off. Jesus. Ain't nobody say nothing about this shit.
Scored lines carved into the walls of the Great Pyramid's descending passageway, which correspond with a similar sloping face at the top of the Trial Passage's descending passage. They both indicate a precise point in the structures. As noted, the descending passageway in the Trial Passages is far shorter, but as Mark Foster discovered, if you measure the distance between the scored lines and the beginning of the two descending passageways, you can work out the scale that was being used. Using this scale, you can precisely work out the beginning of the ascending passageway in the Great Pyramid. It was a deliberate code, and it appears that Al-Mamun was the first to crack it. The Caliph's story about how he found the ascending passageway is certainly far-fetched. That he dug a tunnel into the Great Pyramid, heard a stone fall in the ascending passageway, dug in that direction, and luckily stumbled upon the entrance. I would suggest that he studied the Trial Passages, learned the secrets, and then searched the pyramid, keeping the secret knowledge of the Trial Passages to himself. Until Mark Foster published his article on thehereticmagazine.com, nobody knew the true purpose of the scored lines in the descending shaft of the Great Pyramid, and the flat surface of rock inclined at the same angle at the head of the Trial Passages. But due to the accuracy of the calculations that come from this, and how they can be used to find the ascending passageway, Mark, like Al-Mamun, has certainly cracked this mystery. Of course, as Al-Mamun removed the limestone lintel, he would have certainly been surprised to find the huge granite plugs in the ascending shaft. Yet another puzzle for him to overcome. But thankfully, he was successful in gaining access to the upper chambers of the Great Pyramid. Without his discovery, we would probably still be taught at school that the Great Pyramid, like the Pyramid of Khafre and Menkaure, had just a rock-cut subterranean chamber. But back in the 9th century, Al-Mamun didn't reveal all of the secrets of the Great Pyramid. It was to be another 1,000 years, in 1872 to be exact, that the shafts that emanate from the walls of the Queen's Chamber were discovered. They were already documented in the King's Chamber, so Mr. Weinman Dixon inserted a piece of wire into a small crack in the wall of the Queen's Chamber to see if voids were also present there. He chiselled through both the north and south walls, revealing two 8-inch shafts. These shafts were hidden some 8 inches behind the wall, and also don't make it to the outside of the pyramid. Like the Trial Passages, were the shafts in the King's Chamber made simply as a guide to expose those in the Queen's Chamber? Was this their only function? What were the Queen's Chamber shafts hiding? Why were they built so precisely? And why did they have a dead end at each end? Of course, we know that both shafts have been explored, and what has been described as a door or portcullis with metal handles has been found inside the southern shaft, with a second so-called door behind it. Explorations of the northern shaft also revealed another door, and the truth is, nobody really knows their purpose. But maybe there is a way we can find out. The pyramid builders have left us many clues. For example, just before we reach the doors inside the Queen's Chamber passages, they are lined with fine Chura limestone, a material reserved for chambers and casing in the Great Pyramid. Therefore, this clue may signify further chambers higher up inside the structure. But what is the point in this if we can't reach the doors? The Queen's Chamber passageway is too small for human exploration. There must be another way up, and the layout of the trial passages gives us a glaringly obvious clue that there are certainly undiscovered chambers higher up in the Great Pyramid. The trial passages were built to focus our attention on the junction between the descending and ascending passageways. This is a clear focal point, as the trial Grand Gallery, Queen's Chamber passage and subterranean chamber are incomplete. Yet the junction has an extreme level of accuracy that mirrors that of the Great Pyramid. So why have learned explorers, historians and Egyptologists completely ignored a huge vertical shaft emanating from this point? Does this also exist inside the Great Pyramid? The trial passages show that the vertical shaft is located slightly to the north of the beginning of the ascending passageway. Petrie believed that this shaft was merely a representation of the Great Pyramid's crude well shaft, but this makes no sense. The trial passage builders were so accurate in their Great Pyramid representation that assuming that this is the well shaft defies sense, and it is somewhat insulting to the ancient builders. The position is not even remotely close to the location of the well shaft in the Great Pyramid. In my opinion, this is clearly representing another as yet undiscovered shaft in the Great Pyramid that rises up vertically through the structure. Where it could lead to, nobody knows, but it certainly assumes the likelihood of undiscovered chambers higher up inside the pyramid. The vertical shaft may well be like the shafts that emanate from the Queen's Chamber, in that they are not designed to be found by accident, but by intelligence, knowledge and excavation. 8 inches of stone prevented access to the 2 Queen's Chamber shafts, so could the vertical shaft be hiding behind a similar amount of masonry? And there are further clues to back up the claim of chambers higher up inside the pyramid. If you travel up the ascending passageway of the Great Pyramid, you come across 3 enormous girdle stones, and are clearly present to add strength to the passage. These girdle stones only appear in this one specific section, but is this because there is a void, a hidden chamber or junction directly above it, and so the girdle stones were not needed along the entire length of passageway? Also, in the Queen's Chamber southern shaft, a large section of the shaft floor was broken away, as discovered by Rudolf Ganzenbrink. At this point, the pressure on the shaft amounts to only 1/3 of the maximum value in and around the Queen's Chamber. This infers that there is an undiscovered structure either below or above this shaft section, focusing additional force on the shaft and causing the damage. There is also more evidence for new chambers higher up in the Great Pyramid outlined by Mark Foster in the article linked in the description below, and this was confirmed in 2017 when the world's media reported that the Scanned Pyramids project had found a huge void above the Grand Gallery, thanks to the observation of cosmic ray muons. Interestingly, the voids within the pyramid are exactly where you would expect them to be if there is indeed a hidden vertical passage. Both the small and large voids identified in the results could well link up with the shaft. The larger of the two is located around 40 metres from the floor of the Queen's Chamber and is around 30 metres in length, with a cross-section comparable to that of the Grand Gallery. Like the Grand Gallery, it could be inclined, or it could be horizontal. It could also be several adjacent structures, or one giant chamber. Although it may be not the best idea to speculate how the full internal layout of the Great Pyramid actually looks, Mark Foster offers this example, and I have to say, I agree. But I would actually go one stage further and hazard a guess there is at least one more vertical shaft leading to another chamber in the upper reaches of the pyramid. As mentioned in a previous video, although a new pyramid robot is planned to investigate the new chamber, I think that efforts should be concentrated on the junction of the ascending and descending passage, to find the vertical shaft that must certainly exist. If the trial passages are indeed a key to the Great Pyramid, then the vertical shaft was certainly built to be found. And if the opening is hidden behind just a few inches of rock, then this could prevent more extensive drilling if the robot reveals something worthy of further discovery. Mark Foster believes that the most sacred object of the ancient Egyptians could be waiting to be discovered, the Benben stone, which was once kept at the Temple of the Phoenix at Heliopolis, which was located close to Giza. If you watched one of my previous videos, you will see how I believe that the Caliph Al-Mamun took something from the King's Chamber, but luckily he did not access the proposed vertical shaft. The trial passages were created as a key or a code to unlocking the Great Pyramid, and I believe that something was placed there and is waiting to be discovered by the people who crack the code. Soon, an exploratory robot will investigate the void above the Grand Gallery. Will it reveal the thing that was hidden, or will it just reveal the next part of the puzzle? Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.
You good? Yeah. Alexa, turn it up.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. It was denied for years.
Agree with that one. So it doesn't bother me. What I understand what you mean though is it's the propaganda, and you're confronted with it more so than less. And that is on account of the fact that maybe the people that are against that narrative are not projecting or disseminating their views more in a greater effort than that of the people who allegedly are controlling the narrative. Because they don't control the narrative in my house. They don't control the narrative in the groups that I'm normally in or the environments that I'm normally in. They don't have control over that because I don't surround myself around people who think like that or feel like that. So the narrative that they control is based on the media that I don't take serious anyway. So the only thing I'm concerned with is how do we save the people before they get to that point of thinking? Whatever that thinking may be, for the sake of conversation, that thinking is you're proud that this person found ultimately the Prince Charming, and that's why I said I was happy for the sister.
Brother Polite though,
I'm happy
because
why not?
this woman said she's not black. She said it.
So
Tiger, wait. Let me finish though. There's a point. Tiger Woods also said he's not black. They went in on Tiger Woods for saying he's not black. They say nothing to her for saying the same thing.
Well, let me explain something to you, and I will not digress. I just want you to walk with me. Black men have their shortcomings, and black women have their shortcomings, and we know that it is mostly in part due to social engineering, and we know it's mostly in part due to media propaganda, which is partially in part due to the social engineering that I made mention of. So media propaganda, social engineering, and the likes is responsible for a lot of our inconsistencies or shortcomings or insecurities in the community. The ones that are associated with the woman are more popularized and more visible because they come more in a material form. You know, I know there are more black men drug dealing and gangbanging than black women. I know this. At least from where I'm from personal observation. Maybe it's not that way somewhere else where I'm not from. But from where I'm from and places I have gone abroad, I can see this is a problem amongst black men. Territorial things, okay? Selling drugs to their own people. Glorifying misogynistic practices, okay? Glorifying the degrading of their own women that represent their mothers, their daughters, and their sisters. Even if they say, well, I wasn't talking about her, I'm really talking about these bitches over here. No, you're actually disrespecting your mother, your daughters, your children, your sisters, your siblings. You're disrespecting all of those people that are female in gender when you propagate or view into the psyche of the people that are your patrons, these lyrics that defame your women. Now, that's a problem with black men, by far, that we don't see women have because they're either not in position to do so, they're not in the same position in that particular capacity to do so, or it's just not part of the transgenerational effects of being Africans of the diaspora in contrast to male and female genders. So both have conflicts that's taking place and can outline the black woman's conflict, but let us keep in mind, her conflict isn't created because she naturally was born into this world with this complex. This was brought about through strategic planning for her to respond to adversity in this manner. For adversity in the form of, does my man love me? Adversity in the form of, why is he cheating? Adversity in the form of, where's my father? Now, we may know it's a prison industrial complex that's set there and designed to lock up black men. We may know that black men are killing each other in a mass genocide, okay, embarking upon a fratricidal war amongst each other. We may know all of these things. We know that the food has been compromised, and it is mostly in part responsible for the escalation of homosexuality or effeminate behavior in black men, coupled with broken family households missing black men. And we may turn around and say, you know what, the woman's responsible for the man missing, or the man's responsible for the woman missing. But the reality is, the family is broken up. And when the family is broken up, it's creating behaviors of the children that ultimately only being raised exclusively by black women or the women in the house or the women in the family. And so what we're looking at with this crisis is this. What we got to look at now, we have to now say to ourselves, the issues that come about are going to manifest themselves differently in a man than it would in a woman because they're on different sides of the road. So if the man is taken out of the household because of his gangbanging, because of his homosexuality, because of his effeminate behavior, or because of his massive incarceration, whether he be right or wrong or a victim of the same, it's going to affect the woman differently. And it creates a different insecurity in her. Whether the man was beat in front of her so she could learn to raise her son to be submissive, and then the man comes up so submissive, he doesn't know how to be a man to be received by his woman. And the woman's so used to the man having to be submissive and raising men, she builds a complex where she has to learn how to develop a male instinct to raise a child because the man isn't there. So when she has to interface with a black man, she's damn near a man herself because she's been playing a man role, taking care of all the bills, taking care of the children. She don't know how to be a damn woman to a man. She only know how to be a man to a man. So this gets so out of control. Hold on, I'm gonna show you this.
You killing
Out of
me.
control. Real quick, this gets so out of control that now, because we are an adaptative species, we adapt, we adjust, especially when confronted with adversity. It's part of survival. If the man isn't present, if she's more man than a man, if the man broke her heart, if all three of these things run consistent in most black women's lives, being cheated on, men not raising her as a father, right? Or her watching other family members get cheated on, or men being homosexualized, or men being murdered, you begin to detest your own men of your own race. And now the contingency plan is get someone other than a black man. It's less headache. Because you can move up the social ladder quicker than the brother. And if no one doesn't properly explain this and put this in proper context as a child, which many of us will not, besides white bodies, we hoodwink and we bamboozle, she then begins to think that black men in general are lazy. So she's going to respond to that narrative that black men are lazy, feeling like she bears witness to this in reality, making no concessions to the social construct that does exist that impedes on our ability to be men of provisions or providers. Now she turns around. The contingency plan is not only do you get somebody who can provide for you, because women have always been taught, and I don't disagree with it, get you a lawyer, get you a doctor. In other words, get somebody successful. Most people only knew the words lawyer and doctor. Get somebody successful, materially successful, so you won't be handicapped in the event if they have to leave or what, so forth and so on. So what winds up happening is the white man becomes the prince in the shining armor that we watched on TV. Because if things are not put into proper context, this is how Africans of the diaspora, who are the female gender of the diaspora, this is how they are going to respond to this type of adversity. And so I'm not mad at it. I understand it. I don't castigate or condemn them. I think it's unfortunate, but it all becomes a matter of who educated these people before they came into adulthood, and how much of that education, if they got any of it at all, do they actually understand? Because that's going to be the way we diffuse the momentum of these people that are successful and racial appropriation. Because it's affecting the women and it's affecting the men, but it's affecting us differently. And for the women, we see how it's affecting them. And so that's why it's a double standard. Because the man, most times, is the one teaching on these things. So if you see a black man going in that direction, everybody going to get on his ass. Because the black man is normally the one known to teach you about supreme mastermind, Allah, and God. And that's non-cipher, and the black germ, and the brown germ, and the white germ, and Yakub. Ain't no women on the streets really teaching that. The black man is notoriously known for teaching knowledge of self, whether it be from a Muslim perspective, a Hebrew perspective, whatever that is, or ancient Kemetic science perspective. The black man is known to parade and pride himself in teaching about knowledge of self and leaving or separating yourself from the system or the white man thereof. So when you see the black man do it, that's been inculcated in our mind for so long, man, we gonna get on your ass, black man, because that's how this thing is designed. The onus wasn't put on the black woman, which it should be. Because I was taught, you raise a woman, you raise a nation, you raise a man, you raise an individual. So it stands to reason we should really be making sure we pay attention to her, because she's going to give birth to the baby of the other race.
I can jump in now.
Yes, you can. I didn't know I cared this much about it.
You give, and it's always been where we disagree. You give black women a lot of excuses, and I love the one you gave them, which was, if they've been through so much at the behest of the black men that they themselves are raising alone, because they're the ones who teach them. Because if black women were such good people, and at a 75 to 6% rate, they're raising these black children by themselves, the one thing we should expect from these black children is this: they should have an.
You're at 100.
You gonna let me?
No. I'm sorry. You're at $124 for the Uncooning Tommy Fund. Who's doing this?
What else?
$124 to stop him from cooning. Who the hell is paying you to uncoon?
It's only been one person that really did it. That's why you see my chat room ain't moving. I shut it down. I'm sending them over to your room. They can come over and watch on your side. I told them they gotta treat me like that. I'm sick of niggas always telling me, what you need to do is tell them this. What you need to do is do this. Motherfucker, y'all can't even give a buck. And it's 1,300 of you motherfuckers. But them white boys go live and them sons of bitches be walking around up Bentley and shit. I need to get me a white fan. These niggas want to tell you what to do, win the broadcast, how long the fucking broadcast, what the fuck to say. And then when you ask grown-ass niggas to throw $1 in, the motherfuckers won't do it. It's one nigga that gave $100, and the rest of them keep looking and talking. So shut the fuck up. Go somewhere else. Enjoy all the people that's about to come watch you, Brother Polite, because they ain't watching the shit on my side, motherfuckers. Anyway, let me go back to what I'm sick of niggas. I can't stand niggas. They want everything for fucking free. The cell phone ain't free. They go buy the McDonald's and get a big ass $5 cup of coffee and shit. They do all that, but they want a nigga to tap dance for free. Then they get white man come around, they pay his ass. Fuck them. All right, now let's get into the real conversation. All right, I was trying to point out that there's an issue here.
Yes, sir.
That issue is that you give these women a pass. But if you looked at who were raising the black men over the past 30 years, it's them by themselves. So the one thing you should know is this: they should be overly respectful to black women. They should be very good men. But that's not the case. Why is it that you won't give, like if a black woman's having a problem finding a good black man?
I don't know what his answer about to be to this question, but for the one thing, it's public schooling is one of the main ways the child is brainwashed. And now you have so much television and the rise of the internet. Yeah, if a single black mother is raising her kids, and they should have the utmost respect for single black mothers, but at the same time, you sending your child off 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and they looking at the world through a completely different lens, because we're told you need an education to get by in this world, and their education is still programmed to see themselves as the lesser class at the bottom rung. So it's hard to fucking decipher the two understandings of your reality, where your single black mom is doing whatever she can to fucking raise you and make sure you have food, clothing, and shelter, and then the system telling you that, well, shit, niggas wasn't never nothing but slaves anyway, and before slavery there wasn't nothing, and you ain't never really did shit important, and so it's like it's hard to still balance a child out properly like that, even if you're in a single parent home. Now, I was raised by a single parent, but this is a really good debate though, because these are both black guys, and they're just on different ends of the spectrum. I listen to Brother Polite. I don't agree with everything Brother Polite says. I don't really listen to Tommy Sotomayor because I disagree with him so much. And this motherfucker says nigga more than I do. Like, jeez. And I don't know. Like, he has his points, and I agree with him sometimes. But I don't like, like, the facts are good, but your opinions, you know what I'm saying? I don't agree with most of his opinions. I can always get down with the facts because a fact is a fact. And since this thing has been playing, I've agreed with him a few times already.
You know who she should blame? The motherfucker who raised them. And who raised them that way? Most of us black men cuss all damn day. Motherfucker shit, damn. Where we get this from if there were no men there?
TV.
Our mamas cuss every day.
Where
First
they
thing
get it
they tell
from?
us, sit your black ass down. Y'all motherfuckers get on my nerves. So they speak to you this way. I showed a broadcast the other day of a woman cussing what I thought was somebody out. You know who she was cussing out? Her damn dog. She was talking to her dog like a grown-ass man. If you get your motherfucking ass in the house with your motherfucking shitting all over the place, I was like, who was she talking to? She was talking to the dog. Now,
Rights activists, I get it.
but so all I'm saying is, if you have an individual who has 100% autonomy in raising the children, the one thing that they should do is raise black men with amazing amount of respect. But you hear black women sit up there praising their sons, talking about he gonna be a little player when he grow up, dressing him and teaching him not to be a family man, not to not repeat the mistakes of his father, but encouraging him to do that. So how can they then turn around and say, there ain't no good black men? You know why it's no good black men? Because black women are raising no good black men. As a matter of fact, everywhere you go in the inner cities where black...
I don't see. And this is what Tommy he makes it seem like all of these behaviors are not taking place in a social construct. You know what I'm saying? These concepts and ideas are shaped by our society and by our culture, by our demographics. And I mean, the mind has been molded in such a way where everything that he says is wrong with the culture is depicted in media and entertainment as a general consensus with the group. It's like like the world says this is what you should be anyway, and this is how we're going to depict you anyway. So if every movie was as positive as Black Panther had the image of black people, if every movie was like that when it come to black people, if every song was as heartfelt as Lupe Fiasco's music or Kendrick Lamar music, and then things would change. But the system is so oversaturated with negative images and negative stereotypes of people with dark skin, you know, and it doesn't really matter what your background, your heritage is. It's like if you got dark skin, it's a stigma, and it's weird that way. And so this stigma placed on dark skin by society is viewed in a certain way, and a certain behavior is expected, and therefore it is already projected. And you can read that in Black on Black Violence about projection. And once you project this mindset, and you have the power to place people in an environment and an influence that will make these stereotypes true, that's how you really control motherfuckers, man. And so, yeah, there is a real problem. Yeah, we do need more focus on ourselves and more responsibility amongst ourselves for our culture and the rearing and raising and education of our kids. And we need to step up as a people. And but the thing is, it's not as individuals because everybody else works in group efforts. Everybody else organized as groups. That's why Koreans have and the Thai come here and they all have their restaurants and all the Indians have their fucking gas stations and everybody comes in and creates a community and owns businesses and property in their community, and it's like it's not a big deal, you know, because you know Habib and them gonna have the fucking corner market. You know what I'm saying? You know you're gonna go down to the corner and get some Chinese food from the Chinese man who owns a business in your name, and it's not like a big deal. But as soon as black people start organizing and owning businesses, it's like it seems like it's always a bad thing. So that's the one thing, the main thing. But it once again is still a social construct. Now I don't know what Brother Polite's answer is gonna be to this question. I've never listened to this before, but like I say, I agree with Tony, but he acts like there is not a such thing as society. He acts like there is not a such thing as societal influence. He acts like there is not a such thing as a system of white supremacy, which makes it difficult for the uneducated to achieve and accomplish the the goals and unification that he understands is absolutely possible. And it is possible because these niggas can get on the basketball court and be the best team players. Like, you work awesome as a team on the basketball court. Put them on the football court. I mean, on the football field. These motherfuckers, the best coordinated team function ever. But then you put them out in society, in the real world, and you can't organize and you can't play as a team as well as when the white man put you in little uniforms and dress you up and tell y'all to run at each other. It's the same fucking game. And it's weird, like, people can't organize like that outside in real economics, in a real economic system. And I don't know. But this debate is fucking really good.
Women dominate. The situation, the environment, and everything is bad. But let's just finish it with this. You would never give those same passes to a black man, for that's the reason why he won't date black women, because black women have been so bad, because he had been through so much. So a black man's supposed to stick it out, no matter how bad black women are, no matter how much they weave smell like corn chips and feet. You're supposed to stick it out, no matter how many kids they got by different dudes. You're supposed to stick it out, but black women get an excuse, and they use that excuse that you just gave. Every time you find them with a white man, they say, well, I couldn't find no good black man, so the white man was the better man. But then when they get a white man, they completely change. When Eve was dating black men, she was the pit bull in a skirt. Now she got a white man, she done took the tattoos off. She's on television going, hi, I'm Eve. Don't even come. She act like the Rough Rider days don't exist. So they get the best of black women when they get them, no matter how bad they were. There's a problem with that, in my opinion.
Well, I'll say this, my brother.
What? And see, that's why I can agree with Tony or some shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's factual. But once again, why is that the way? We can't speak proper or do certain things amongst ourselves, and like, I'm gonna just listen to this.
I've made no concessions to the women that we may see as lost. I have not overridden the plight of the black man. All I did was elaborate in great detail what some of the byproducts may be, as we are Africans of the diaspora, male and female. And since women tend to be the main focus, particularly when we get on these platforms, then it stands to reason that I hone in on them, and I say to you simply, the behavior is a byproduct of something else. It is not that I'm letting her off the hook. It's simple reasoning. And so That which, if a black woman was sitting in your space and she was the black woman version to Tommy Sotomayor, I would then say, hey, without making concessions to the black men, I would just please take into consideration the following things. Because we're not just born like this. And it doesn't happen in one generation either. People don't function like this or be so disenfranchised in this capacity overnight or in one generation. This has to happen. Year after year after year, there has to be some kind of conditioning. There has to be some type of social engineering to generate this type of cognitive dissonance. So I made no concessions, my brother. And if the black man engages a black woman whose weave smells like corn chips, then shame on him, the black man, for not knowing better. That's
but that's your problem. If you're raised in a household with people, if your mama's hair smell like that, you wouldn't even notice it. You think it's normal. Just like if mama walk around with all this damn weave and wigs on, you think it's normal. Just like if mama's a ratchet chick or if different dudes are screwing your mama, you ain't gonna feel bad about screwing over some regular woman who ain't your mama when you saw happen with your mama.
Brother, there's a small population. Too many women, correct, but a small population considering how many black women exist that actually have weave smelling like corn chips. So shame on the black man. I don't care if his mama came from that.
Listen, I want you to do me a favor. If you say it's a small group, do me a huge favor then. Right now inside your browser, and everybody who's watching can do the same thing. In your YouTube browser, Google weave. I mean, not Google, but in the search bar, put weave corn chip smell and see what comes up. Just put it in there right now. See what comes up.
I don't have a problem. I'll do it.
Oh my God.
But I don't know how am I going to smell this through the screen.
But this is what I'm
And
saying.
I'm telling you from personal experience, I don't walk around black women who smell like corn chips. Because if I smell feet that smell like corn chips, I wouldn't want to be around the woman. And if I smell hair that smells like corn chips, I wouldn't want to be around the woman.
But that's because you care about you, a brother that know your blood type and all that. But the majority of brothers don't know the stuff that you know, man. The majority of brothers don't know what food is good for them.
It sounds like you're making concessions to black men. That's what it sounds like. The black man don't know no better because he was taught by the black woman who didn't know better. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying, well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, you have to think about it. The majority of black women don't even know how to talk to a woman, date them for like a year. The one thing you won't hear them say is, I'm going to my OBGYN. All you brothers out there, think about when the last time your girlfriend, the black girl you was dating, even said she was going there. As a matter of fact, black men at a young age think that pussy is supposed to stink because most of these girls walking around with Joe's Crab Shack between their legs because they think it's normal.
Yo, listen, I'm going to say two things.
Go to a black strip club and smell like you just walked into the, what was that we go to downtown? Spawn Divots.
Well, brother, I have to say this. If you're going to strip clubs where the women smell, that's not good business practices.
I don't go anymore because of that. I stopped going in my 20s.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't know where you're finding these places, these people, all these searches in the engine, because I just typed in the women corn weave smelling thing, and that's a whole nother world I just opened up. I ain't seen no stuff like this before.
It's a gang of them. And if
your ass is ratchet, bro. It's you, Tommy. Your ass is ratchet. How is it I don't know about this whole phenomenon going on?
Because
I almost lost track of the stream because I'm looking at this craziness.
Because you protect the villain. That's what you do. You love the villain. You go chilling with the villain.
What the hell are you doing to find this kind of shit? This is crazy.
That's what you do. You like chilling with the villain.
Wait.
Me, I call the villain.
Yeah. Me? Register the vote? No. I can vote if I want to, but I don't. You ever heard George Carlin's bit about why I don't vote? I live by that. That is my creed when it comes to voting. George Carlin's bit on golf. That is my creed when it comes to golf. There's so much I agree with that man on. Like he was a ghetto philosopher. You know what I'm saying? Look that up. George Carlin. Why I don't vote. I used to vote. I voted twice. In my younger years. Good morning. What up, bro? No, weave. Weave. Women's hair who smells like corn chips. That's, but then this is a black dude telling another black dude to look that shit up. So now there, he does have me so intrigued because Brother Polite was like, "Yo, you just opened me up to a whole another world. I ain't even know this shit existed, and I did not either." Is there like some subculture of trolls who go around sniffing black women's weave and comparing it to the smell of corn chips? All you have to do is type in weave, or is it? I mean, that's the first thing that pops up when I just typed in the word weave, and the rest of it came up. Weave smells like corn chips. Exactly. Now, is this topic so popular right now, or is it that I've actually been talking about this? The audio from the stream was talking about it, and my devices picked up on that, and so as soon as I go to search it, it pops up first. I've never, ever, ever tried to search this shit before. I've never tried to search that shit, but it is just by me putting the word weave. That's all I type. The first thing, the very, very first thing that pops up is smells like corn chips. Hmm.
You're a defense attorney. You don't care. You just want to defend them. I'm the prosecutor. I got to get them off the street. So we see things differently.
You a wild dude, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. You put me onto something. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this information in my brain, but I know it's gonna chase me for the rest of my life.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of people don't know about it, and I'm trying to bring it to them. When I first saw it, I was shocked. Somebody sent me this, I was like, no. Because I always talked about that weave smell. That's why I don't date women with weave. And they was like, dude, there's a whole world of people talking about the smell and trying to get it out. Like there was these black women who were fired from Waffle House because they were boiling weave in the boiler at the job. I think it's crazy what they do for weed, man.
And it's crazy what some black men would do for weed, man. But that's not to speak to the whole black male populace. You're finding the ratchet amongst the black community, and you're castigating the whole black woman community.
But everybody likes weed. You can find white boys who like weed.
I don't like weed.
Who likes weed?
You see?
You ain't gonna find a bunch of people spending $10 billion a year on weed.
I'm still more
their fucking hair. Normal people like their own head. It's only one group.
And that, again.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Saying shit like that always propagates the whole fucking group as being negative. Just like if you're Muslim, you're a fucking terrorist, or if you're Islamic, you're a terrorist or something. That doesn't mean that. It does not mean that. That's just like saying if you're a white Christian male, you're a fucking pedophile, arsonist, rapist. But you know that stigma doesn't like permeate through the whole group. You know what I'm saying? But with like certain stigmas, it just permeates so bad. Like oh, and even I had this is weird. Like nah, keep everybody anonymous. But a Spanish chick, you know what I'm saying? A Spanish chick who has a sister who's mixed said, "Oh, well, all black girls with long hair have weave because black girls can't grow their hair long." And it's like that's like, huh? And you're and you're not even white, and you're banging on like the hair of African Americans. It's like it's weird. But shit, this is I don't have fucking weave, and I know plenty of black chicks whose hair is longer than mine. Most of the women in my family hair is longer than mine, like naturally, and they don't fucking wear weave. They don't have no corn chip smelling weave. And then that's some other shit too, like I don't know, like all my sisters and all my cousins do hair like. Yeah, I remember like I used to ask these shit, y'all bitches motherfucking change your hair every week because they did not play that shit, yo. Every week it's like if they style their shit one kind of way and them braids and shit, they wouldn't never let them shit just stand there for like months and months and months. That shit be crazy. But he's making it seem like this is, and like Polite said, you're finding the most ratchetest of the ratchet. And yeah, it would still seem like, oh, this whole entire subgroup of people, but like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
Why is it that black men can walk around with what God gave them out of their scalp, but the black women refuse? The same black women who wear weave would make fun of you and me if we put on Tom Cruise's hair, bro. And you know it. They laugh, they tell us all kinds of stuff, but they can do it. That's what I mean. You can't be a person who tells what is or isn't black, and then you do the complete opposite, and nobody's supposed to call it out.
But that's a different dynamic because that's something that takes place within the confines of women's culture, not black men's culture. So I'm not going to be looking for like black men to suffer from having cramps if I know there's.
But we used to put the conch in our head. We used to do the Jerry curl. No, everybody likes to have a nice hair on their head. You know it. But as soon as what's that? The brother, Young Jock. All he did was do like a press or whatever he did on his head. It was a fucking joke. He looked ridiculous. Some of the black women were so stupid they were dissing themselves. He looked like he get ready. He a single mom get ready to go to college. So they point out that they look like that. That they look like this man.
Listen to me carefully, my brother. You know how when you look up certain information on YouTube, like let's say all I looked up was archaeology, then you know it wouldn't be a coincidence if things that's connected to archaeology pops up on my computer. You know, some people go, wow, what's the odds that I should find this? I was just come out this the other day. The reality is that's how the brain works. If you got ratchet black woman in mind, day to day, you're going to find a plethora of information that corresponds with these ratchet black women. It's a fact. Because this is what you into. I think you love ratchet black women.
I do.
There you go.
Yes. I like them ratchet hoes, but listen, I want things to change. Look, wait with me.
You love them the way the trolls love you.
Well, hold on a second. For you to say this, here's the difference. When I'm talking about something, I'm talking about something that's a problem. That's the equivalent of saying a person who's saying they see cops and they go around and they want to look at what the bad cops are doing and pointing it out and try to get them off the street. That don't mean they love the bad cop. The person who's going out in the Innocence Project, that don't mean they love people who've been railroaded. They abhor people who railroad people. There's a difference. If you say that, then you would any cause off the
Yeah, see,
table.
that's
That
he's
is a
and he's
legit
making
cause,
good
'cause
points,
you
but we
try
still
to
need the other
down that
side,
by saying, well, you
like
love
what
that
Polite
since you're trying to
does.
rid the world of that. You love cancer because you the head of cancer research, but that don't make any sense.
And let me say this to you.
So you love molesters because you're trying to get molesters off the street? Like, really?
No,
That's the logic?
no, but I will tell you this. If P implies Q and Q implies P and P implies R, does that mean that Q implies R?
If P implies I and I implies M and M implies P, does that imply I'm a pimp?
Okay, I like that. But go back to because I'm going to show you how what you said sounds like it makes sense, and it does, but it doesn't make sense all the time because it's not.
Right, just like what you said though doesn't make it. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay, now let me walk you through the process, brother.
You think it's bad and you think it's a problem. You're saying I must love it because I think it's an issue and I rail against it.
Okay, now let me tell you this. The point that I made was very valid, and I'll explain why. But before I do that, since we're making it a matter of logic, there are things that have been postulated before that we use mathematics to see if a person has the right to see things a certain way and yet still remain logical in the process. So I won't use letters as variables. Instead of P implies Q, Q implies P, Q implies R, so R should imply P. That's what you're saying, and that's the law of implication. There's an instance where it may make sense. Like what you just said made sense. But just because what you said made sense doesn't mean what I said also doesn't make sense. That's called the law of implication. When both parties can make rational out of similar variables, syllogistically speaking, and both parties can be right for their perspective. Your perspective that's accurate in this particular instance doesn't nullify my perspective. Because if that were the case, then it would be the law of double implication reversal. This is the truth table, or what you call sentential calculus, which helps us identify if something someone said was logical or illogical. So, if the Knicks beat the Bulls and the Bulls beat the Lakers, does that mean the Knicks can beat the Lakers by logic? No. It is an assumption that would be made. Yo, they should be able to, but then we know realistically there are different variables, so we can't come to the same conclusion, syllogistically speaking. So, hold on, brother. So if dogs are mammals, hold on, brother, hold on. If dogs are mammals and all mammals are warm-blooded, it is safe to conclude that all dogs are warm-blooded. That means that no matter how you spin it around, it will always be right. The logic that I used is correct, and the logic that you just used is correct. Unfortunately for you, just because of the logic you use is correct, it doesn't take away from what I said. In fact, you should still answer it. So, what I said, and I'll say it again, because what you said is the law of implication. And when it cannot be reversed the way you just did it, that is to presume that what I said would go under the law of double, or what you're saying goes under the law of double implication reversal, which it doesn't. And
One thing. That's what I'm saying. That's a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing, because the truth of the matter is you made an assertion towards me and it should have been easily me saying no, that's not true, and then we went to the same thing, something else. I didn't say that what you were saying was not true based upon something else. It's not true because it's just not true. Just like if I said you were at the club last night and you know you weren't, then that pretty much ends the conversation if you say no, I wasn't. So I'm telling you, I don't love ratchets because I'm going against them. And I use an example, but we can just throw the example out. I don't love ratchets because I'm going against them. I think it's a bad thing. And if you don't see, or anybody else in the black community does not see that these people are causing a problem, then that in itself is a problem.
I got you. So let me say this. You have every right to say, I don't love ratchets. But you postulated to go against what I was saying, the manner in which you did it. You've created a scenario where I had to come back and say, listen, brother, both our perspectives can be absolutely correct.
I'm not, though.
Huh?
It can't be, though, if I know I'm not. Like,
okay, now watch this.
You know you weren't at the club, and I'm saying you were.
And that doesn't match what I'm talking about, because that's not a syllogism. Because a syllogism is when you have two premises that lead to a conclusion. I know what I'm talking about. You're not using a syllogism right now. You have a sentence made up of a subject and a predicate. That's what you had in the story. So you're saying, well, it doesn't matter if you went to the club and I didn't go to the club, then what does that? No, brother. What we're talking about is built upon several different variables. So now we have to identify it as a syllogism. And syllogistically speaking, it now has to fall within the realm of implication or double implication reversal. That's what it has to fall in using logic. So whether you like it or not, both of us are prevalent in this matter where we can both say, you know what? Both concepts make sense. I understand what you're saying. You're saying, brother, you can't say that I love these ratchet women when I'm telling you I don't love these ratchet women. I understand what you're saying. That's where you at with it. I don't love these ratchet women. So no matter what you say, doesn't mean that I love these ratchet women. I get you. How you responded takes it out the window. And two, I know you love those ratchet women.
See, that's when we get stuck on stuff like this. And
I don't mind. Let's do it.
Yeah, we get stuck in stuff like this, and it just becomes like, okay, let's throw some mud out here.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Is affection a positive thing? Or can affection be inclusive of something positive or something negative? Or even just something questionable? Is affection exclusive to a positive feeling?
No, an affectionate typically is a good intention on the person having. Now, that doesn't mean that the person receiving the affection finds it a good thing. But there are, and maybe you can tell me sometimes which is not.
Okay.
But in general, affection is a positive feeling from one person to another.
Okay, so I also know affection to mean, if you need me to screenshot you the definition from a source, because I have to have source material for why I come to the conclusions I come to.
Whatever was fine. I told you where it was really quick. I told you how I felt about it, and then now
I don't have a problem about how you feel about the words you use.
I'm waiting on you because you may have to, and that's
no problem. I'm with you. I don't hold nothing against you. I never have a problem with how people feel about words that they use. The only problem I will wind up having is if I tell them what those words actually mean from a point of reference, and then they have a feeling about me for using the words from a point of reference, but I didn't make a feeling about you for having a feeling about the words. So
I want to be corrected. That's why I jumped in.
Okay, no problem. I'm with you. And what you said, to your credit, most people, I believe, would say at least that it generally has a positive connotation when you talk about affection. I believe that. So I'm not ignorant nor oblivious to that. But affection also is the process of affecting or being affected. Affection is the process of affecting or being affected, and is not limited to good or bad or right or wrong. So now what we'll do, if we know what love is, love by definition is an intense feeling of deep affection. I know, and everyone else knows, you are deeply affected by the things that black women are doing. So by that definition, you love these ratchet black women because you are deeply affected by them. And we can tell this based on how you go through these diatribes when you castigate or condemn them before the public continuously or annually, year to year. So by that meaning, I know you love these ratchet women because I know you are deeply affected by these ratchet women because you've spoken on your personal accounts on so many different occasions.
Now, I can tell you what I'm affected by that scares me. Like when I hear a story about the brother in Chicago that shot, or when I watch the when I watch the hypocritical behavior, and I know I have to deal with that. You have to deal with when I get online, the niggas these women are raising are the same niggas that's flagging your shit and fucking with your child and stuff. Of course, then at that point, somebody should say something, especially me, if I know I'm directly affected by the seed and the products that they're putting into the world. Like if you knew white women were putting out white dudes who were going around raping black women and hanging black dudes, you would say most of these damn Racist, rapist white men are coming from single white women who are telling them this.
Yes.
It don't mean you give a shit about the white women.
Totally
You
understood.
want to know where the source is coming from, so you can tell the people who are mostly affected by it where it's coming from, and hopefully the people who are doing it might give a crap enough to change because you done put a spotlight on them. Not that they give a crap about you, but you done put the spotlight on them to where if either they change or we start dealing with you differently because we know who you are.
I totally agree with you. And so I never disagreed with what you said before. It doesn't mean that you love them. I understood the context from which you were speaking from. So I agree based on that context. And then I thus elaborated on where I'm coming from. To tell you, based on that context, I'm actually accurate as well in what I'm saying. And I gave clarity. So I'm okay with all of that. All right, cool. Okay, so I'm cool on that. I don't want us to digress. We building. You know, I just want you to understand where I'm coming from when I'm speaking.
So before we go to the next topic, though, I still want you to clarify something for me. Why you said why they relate to them, but can you say if I say
put the chat back up? You made some more money, bro. Put the chat back up.
Well, it's on your side, but I'm telling you, I got a headache, and if I would leave yours up.
Yeah, leave it up. Leave mine up.
No, I would have left yours up. But everybody in your chat room, they sit up there, talk about the kid he ain't got. What happened to that white girl?
I'm gonna work on that while we're talking.
12 inches. Like if I got actually people talking about what we're talking about, I'll leave your comment section up. Fuck mine. I will leave yours up. But then I went to yours because when I tried to put yours up, I was like, God dog, they ain't even talking about the show. They just talking about my mama, my daughter, and they keep doing it.
I'm sure they're speaking about the show at this particular moment. Let's just see.
Let's see. Because if they are, I'll leave it up.
It's not fair to the people who actually are engaged and they want to read what each other's saying and respond.
I agree. But at the end of the day, if they're gonna do it, I'm not gonna just put it up and let it be on my screen. If it's on yours, they can do it. I would do it on mine.
I understand.
But here's the thing: somebody say I sound like a brat. See, but I have the right to sound like a brat on my own damn channel. That doesn't make any sense. If somebody say come into their house, you take your damn shoes off. Niggas the only people complain about how that person run their house. That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I don't go to people's shit if I don't like the way they run it. Did it? If I go to your house and you serving pork, I'm not gonna complain about you serving pork. I'm not gonna go to your house. And if you ask me why I'm not at your house, I'm gonna say because you keep serving pork.
I dig it.
So, and again, I'm not taking anything from them. They can talk. I didn't stop them from talking. I even told my audience, you want to talk? Go over that. Well, there it is. Apparently somebody did it. So, I don't know what happened, but we got over it like really quick. That was weird. I don't know what the fuck happened. But it just went up to 516 out of nowhere.
Now you got to put it up because you made a deal with these people.
I know. That's what I said. I don't know what happened, but I'll put it back up. I'm in my word.
Put up for Tommy to stop. Yo, I'm telling you, I'm feeling away here. And I ain't gonna be teaching it for free.
Yo, that's crazy. Yo, Tommy, he put up a fundraiser for him to stop cooning. $500 for Tommy Sotomayor to stop cooning. That shit went up to $516. Like, really, Tommy? Jesus, dude. Now, what? That's the whole thing. Like, are you really gonna stop cooning? That's such a ridiculous challenge. But then he gets on Brother Polite for his views and stuff. But you're calling yourself a coon, and you're putting out a $500 challenge to stop cooning, and it went over $500. And he says it's a gag, it's just a joke. He said, last week I put up, whatever donations for me to get some head or something. And it's like, yeah, but are you really going to go get head with that money? Is your audience paying for your blowjobs now? I just want some paint. I just want some paint and canvases, and I hate to ask motherfuckers for that shit. This dude said he wants some blowjobs. He'll stop cooning for $500. Wow.
Encouraging people to cool.
Brother, like them niggas ain't shit.
If you're putting your money towards someone uncooling, you're selling me on the idea to cool.
It's reverse psychology, man.
That is wild.
It's a distraction through the whole show.
Team Green in the building. They always show up and they always show out. Damn it, man. But I want to ask you this, and many of them are telling me to keep it. I'm looking, and these people are telling me to keep the chat closed. They donated to me to keep the chat closed. And then, like this person says, Tommy crying again, freedom of speech. I didn't stop you from talking, motherfucker. You just wrote it. So now they saying freedom of speech is to fuck with me. That's what they believe freedom of speech is. You should, not only should I have freedom of speech, but I should be able to force you to listen to it. What is wrong with people? They can type whatever they want. They're not being stopped from doing it. And they're still saying that because I wasn't putting it on the screen, it's freedom of speech. Oh my God. This one dude, see your chat room, this dude is no different than a homeless man begging. And you don't go around fucking with homeless people for begging. So why you fucking with me? I ain't never seen none of y'all niggas be up in a homeless person's face talking about some nigga stop begging. Nigga stop begging. So if I'm no different, then treat me like a homeless person. You don't make no fucking videos about a homeless person. You don't talk shit about a homeless person's kids. You don't say shit when they got their hands out. So leave me alone. Let me be homeless. Their logic is there.
Yeah.
Tommy need to pacify. That's why your chat room is your chat room on my damn screen. Your chat room is just a bunch of dumbasses. It is. Now I know it ain't your people, because there's a lot of people who just dislike me who are just using your chat room to do it. That's all. I'm not gonna say it's your people. I'm trying to get us to stay on the subject. But let me just ask you this. This is why I have such a problem with a lot of people if we do a lot of talking about nothing and we don't stick to the subject and just go on and kill it and move around. Let me just see if I watch. Let's see what happens. We're gonna go right back to the subject and let's see what's being written in your comment section as we are in the subject.
Yeah, I see a lot of support too. I see people saying facts, Tommy.
No.
Haters gonna hate Tommy.
Yeah, because they had to come over there from my channel because I shut it down. Remember?
Okay.
But
I just like to see the positive people. We view the world different. I like seeing what people are thinking because I generate a lot of new thoughts in response to what they're thinking, even if it's a little bit negative. I'm not talking about the people.
You gotta understand what I'm dealing with. People are trying to destroy my life. That's the difference. So I can't see it. When it was just they were doing that stuff, but they weren't flagging my stuff down. They weren't putting out my address. They weren't going to my mom. When it wasn't that, I viewed it just like you. I was like, it's just comments, and at least you know. That's not what it is anymore. These people are trying to destroy my fucking life. So I don't want to see them or give them a voice when I know they're not here to have a discussion or even tell people, hey, Tommy's wrong about this, he's wrong about that. They're literally here to fuck up my life. I don't want to talk to those people, and I won't like to see their comments anymore. I used to have fun doing it. I used to have fun responding to them. It was fun at that point because it was just dialogue. Yeah. It's not dialogue anymore. These people are trying to fuck my life up. So I want to ask you, so we can end this first part of it, I want to ask you about, you said that they identify with the black woman, although the woman's not black, but you said they identify with her. So I then want to ask you, is there a same kind of situation that we as black men have like that? Like we see Jesse Williams, and Jesse Williams marries a white woman, and we identify with him because, well, he's black, even though he looked like Justin Timberlake. Do we do this? Do black men? Do you know of this happening amongst black men?
Oh yeah. The thing is, the approach that the black man takes is different from the approach the black woman takes. You're not going to tell me that black men don't strive to be white men, because they do. It's just that the interest is higher and more appealing to black women because of the dynamics amongst the male and female genders. You understand what I'm saying? Amongst the male and female genders, it's it's going to manifest itself amongst black women in the form of their appearance. It's going to manifest itself with black men in the form of their behavior. You know, whether they want to talk differently, change their voice a little bit, you know, and appeal more to a white tonation, or it may be the manner in which they want to deal with their females might be from a more primitive European aspect or construct than that of the black love archetype that we've demonstrated throughout the years when uncompromised and left to our own vices. So you're not going to see the black man put on a Tom Cruise wig. You're not going to see that. But you may see a demonstration of the white man's hostility vicariously working through the black man. You may hear it in his tonation when he changes his tone. You may see it in his disposition. I've seen black men have relationships with white women. Pardon me. I've seen black men have relationships with white women, and this is where you get the term "the sunken place," where you see black men. If you watch that movie, Get Out, that's a prime exemplification. That's a prime example.
But wait, that's what I mean. Y'all will do that. You said this is where you get this term. No, you got it from a misuse of the from this movie, which was made by this mixed guy who's married to a white woman. So that would be that he was making that movie to say black men who date white women are in the sunken place. That is not what he was saying. It wouldn't make any sense.
But what we cannot deny is the joke was that black man obviously wasn't acting like a black man, and this was an example of a black man overwhelmed.
So you just still
hold on. Because remember, I've answered your question, so I don't want you to create a new conversation until we make it clear that what I said has been addressed. And you said, in what instance, to paraphrase, do you see the black man following suit in the manner in which black women may say, hey, I want to be in the image and likeness of the white woman, or I want to be in the image and likeness of white culture? You said, so where do black men do it? Almost as if it doesn't exist. So an example would be provided by the imagery of the movie Get Out. No matter what racial stock, no matter what racial stock,
question.
No matter what racial stock.
Back and hear what my question was. My question said, give me an example of when a black man utilized a mixed man who then went out and married a white woman and agreed and identified with that man's life.
Say it again, my brother.
Black men, any black man, saw a mixed man get a white woman and identify with that man's life.
A black man sees a mixed man identifies
or date a white woman and they identify with that man and be like, you go, bro.
And they identify with the mixed man?
Yes. A biracial man, you know, a white woman, you know, like Blake Griffin. Like, name the time that black men was like, you go, Blake Griffin.
Ask you a question about this mixed man. Is this mixed man leaning towards white culture or black culture?
Meghan Markle is leaning towards white culture. So
okay, so the person that they're identifying with has the past and is using the past to dibble and dabble or indulge in white culture, correct?
Yes, and we are identifying with this person who
so they won't be following a white man. And in that case, let's go back to the movie, because you're only going to, in this particular conversation,
real life. Meghan is not a movie. This is a real chick. I'm not going to let you misidentify what this reason for making.
But let me ask you something, brother. It's called satire. And when you're using or employing satire, it's because something is factually relevant. Something's factually relevant to the real world, which makes you laugh, not because of the principle that it's just a good joke. The satire that's being employed stipulates that this is funny because we see the relevancy of this joke in real life, day to day. So the satire employed in that movie, though it is a movie, attested to something that transpires in the real world that we all identify with, which tells us that black men too can be lost and lose themselves in white culture, or want to indulge in white culture to desperate extremes. And when that black man, something happened to that black man, all of a sudden he became a homie again, and we laughed because we said he was acting like other than himself in kind, and he had to snap out of it. The movie didn't create. Hold on, the movie did not create that. That's something that already existed that we finally seen portrayed in a movie. Right or wrong?
In the movie was not quote unquote acting white. the man dating that woman was not any of that. That was the point.
You lost my point. So let me show you the point. The point of the matter is, black men can lose themselves in European culture just like black.
But that's
and hold on. The point was, show me when. Now you're saying, show me when a black man wants to emulate the
life example. That's all I asked for, Rick. This should be short. When you ask me for a life example,
I'm able to tell me how to answer the
you
question.
asked me for a life example of the corn chips, I just sent you to the place and you saw it. It wasn't my
I didn't ask for that, sir. You suggested it to me. I said, okay. You suggested it to me. I said things about it, but I didn't ask for it.
Yes, because you were saying that can't be a large number. It's a small number, so why address it? Yet when it came to
I didn't ask for it.
Any example, you could only find a movie. If you said this movie is set to real life, I'm asking you to just name one for me. A real person.
I got a homeboy named John that we make fun of him. We call him White Boy John, even though he's a black man.
Move on, then.
What is that example gonna do for you? And it's fact too. I know. I could call 2 people now and ask them about White Boy John. I can call 2 people right now. That's not gonna get that for you.
You're right. You have an example of a personal example, and I should give a personal example, I guess, of mine, and it can destroy any argument you have as we talk, even though it's.
Oh no! What I did was
Noah.
Right now, you're pissed off about the royal wedding because of the mixed race woman.
I'm not. Oh no! I'm not pissed off about the wedding.
I'll take off pissed off. Your example is about the mixed woman and black women identifying with a mixed woman. But what I'm saying is, if the woman wasn't mixed, then we still will be dealing with some of the same stipulations. But the fact that the woman is mixed, the argument isn't so much that these black women want to emulate a mixed woman. The argument is these black women are emulating a woman who got the pass to get into that culture. That's what it is, because they already were emulating the disposition that she's getting away with. So
I'll agree with that. So you're saying black women down.
The conversation is that black women want to be mixed. It's black women want to be white, because the woman that's mixed, you said, don't even identify with being black.
So then now let me ask that. Let's have short answer. So you're saying what you just said, that black women deep down would like to be able to pass and put themselves in a higher position in white society. Is that what you just said?
The conversation is about the black women who want to do that.
That's all I'm asking.
I don't generalize black women, because I'm around too many that don't want to be white.
But
so
you were
generalizing them. That by my own experience.
But you literally were generalizing them earlier. You were generalizing how many of them even come to that conclusion. That was a general.
I was speaking in context to the conversation that you proposed to me before we got on the phone, that we later indulged in on this live stream. So to make it clear, if there was any discrepancies, then I don't mind there being a discrepancy. Luckily for us, you was able to voice what the discrepancy is, so I can rectify or remedy the matter. I am not making generalizations about black women. I'm speaking on the subject matter that exists in this dialogue, which is the black women, definite article, the black women who want to be white or are culturally lost or displaced. That's the conversation I'm having. Not all black women, not black women in general, but the black women who suffer from that particular issue. That's who I'm talking about.
Okay, like the idea of saying, like somebody wrote in the comment section, they said, Tommy wants to be white. Yet, if a black woman is doing this, it's not a bad thing for her. So you can put black men down, even if they're not doing anything to try and be white.
Who are the people putting black men down? Who's that person talking? Do you know them personally?
No. What I'm saying is,
they're black or white.
Whoever that person is, what I'm saying is, it's what we use.
It matters, because you're talking as though black people, it's okay for black people to do. No, do you even know if that person is black that said that? We don't know them from a hole in the wall.
I can only go by what they're saying.
Well, it wasn't cool when I talked about my homeboy John, but it's cool for you to talk about an anonymous person in the chat and qualify them for your argument.
I can't
hear a reference about the person in the chat
because if I said I was at a club and somebody got hung at the club, if everybody saw it, then that's a discussion we all can say really happened. If I say it and I'm the only one who saw it, it just sounds like I'm using a contrary argument. So you can see what the person wrote. If I wouldn't just say, well, that's what I just.
It matters if a black person is saying it based on your argument.
Why? Because what was my argument?
Your argument is it's okay for the black man to be condemned before his own when he's with a white woman. But the double standard is when the black woman finds herself in the same scenarios, we make concessions to her. This has been the argument, the whole conversation. So in order for you, hold on. In order for you to reference someone in the chat room, they have to be black first for it to make sense as part of your narrative. And if we don't know if they're actually black, we need not bother ourselves or beguile each other with this idea because we don't even know what race that person is. They could just be trolling from Asia for all we freaking up. We don't know who that is. So let's not even reference the person in the chat in respect to this conversation because it's not a good reference. I'm using what you're using. It's just more direct and accurate right now. I don't want to use the chat room people as a reference.
When before this came up, I used several others. I said I used Maya Angelou. Never heard anybody condemn her work or her position. And she married not one, but two. You've never heard anybody say anything about Diane Carroll.
You don't think someone condemned Maya Angelou for dealing with someone other than her race?
All I know is
you haven't heard it. Is that possible? You think black people all over the world who looked up to Maya Angelou just went with it?
But brother, that's why I asked the audience and you, because I can only go by my standpoint. But then if you have a different take, you've seen something different, I welcome it. That's why I asked it in the form of a question, not said it in the form of a statement. I asked the question of everyone watching and you. So if anybody knows, wait a minute, bruh, they put her down bad. You got to look at that. You got to look at that article. Then I go like, oh shit, I didn't know.
And who's they? When we say they put it down, that's black people or that's media? Who are we talking
That's what I said. I said they, and then I said go look at this article or that article, or because I point out things that as a whole, it's the same way as what happened.
Todd, what? Who are these people you talking about? That's mad at these people for having interracial relationships. Who are? What are we talking about? Black women in general? Are we talking about black men and black women? Are we talking about white media with a black writer as the guy who's authored the article? What are we talking about here?
I'm talking.
You're not going to tell me anybody that's black or that's in the black community, be they brother or sister,
That's what I'm talking about. I'll tell you.
Relationship. I'm sure someone is older.
What am I talking about? And I'll tell you. But then you ask the question, and then you continue to filibuster the question.
I'm filibustering. Go ahead, my brother. Then I'll pull back. I'll listen.
You ask, who are these people? I'm saying I was talking about there's several different articles who were written by us, who are consumed by us. And as we consume them, we will say yes, just like with Kanye West, just like how you pointed out, The Sunken Place. You referenced a movie. That doesn't mean every black person thinks like that, but you did reference a movie. So if you can reference pop culture, I'm doing the same thing. And you referenced a man who's mixed, who's married to a white woman, who made the movie, and still were able to reference that movie.
Well, in fact, he understands the crisis more.
Yet, I couldn't say that the person who wrote the comment in the comment section, whether they be black, white, or whatever, they understand the crisis more. So their comment is correct because they understand.
The person that's the director is the epitome of your whole focal point because you're talking about the mixed child. So the director is mixed. And he's the one projecting these ideas to the masses, and he employs satire, which made it funny.
Yeah, who brought into it?
Knows that it's funny because it's coming from a place of relevancy. And
yet who bought into it?
Satire.
Who are the people who bought into the mixed man?
Oh, shit.
You don't hear white people sit up here saying, like, I do something like that's Negroes' words.
So black and white people in the theater. So they bought the ticket, so they bought into it.
They didn't know what it was when they bought the ticket, man. Come on now. Now you.
So how the hell do these movies sell this fast? How did it sell so much? It sold millions, $30 million more than they even intended.
You went to go see it. You didn't know what was in it. You wanted to go see it because everybody said, man, you need to go see this movie. But you didn't know that was the message.
So you mean to tell me nobody went to the
You know
movie
what the
based on
message was when I went to go see it. I didn't know how Infinity War was going to end. That's why I went to go see it.
What does the second week of movie sales stipulate? The second week is the most significant week in movie sales.
They have staying power because usually what happens is, and what makes the second week so important.
Let's do it.
What makes the second week so important is because just like the movie that just came out, Solo, the first week will do well if the consensus that comes out, people say, oh shit, it sucked. Word of mouth will kill it. Deadpool 1 made a bunch of money because the people who saw week 1 said it was great.
That's right.
So week 2, people were like, well shit, I need to go see it too.
Facts.
That's what I'm saying. But they didn't.
Exactly.
They will go. That's what happened when you get out.
To see week 2 without some kind of context.
So what I'm saying is the people in week 1, people were like, oh my God, y'all got, because I was one of the people who did it. And I was one of the people who did a review. I was like, you got to go see this movie.
Okay, and let me do this real quick for the people in the chat. I want the people in the chat to type in the name of the article that Tommy Sotomayor used that he said he referenced. Type in the name of the article or type in the author or the writer of the article. Hold on, y'all. Tommy, don't say nothing. I want y'all to type in the name of the article that Tommy referenced or type in the writer of the article that Tommy referenced. And tell me if that writer is actually black or white. In fact, tell me what the name of the article is, because I didn't hear the name of the article. And you know what? I know you didn't hear the name of the article. But since you support the brother, tell me the name of the article that he actually referenced, because I referenced a movie based on the fact that it identified with contemporary politics and other topical issues. Again, hold on. Don't worry about it.
He's got a gay boy. You're not talking about that audience that you're reading right there.
Yes.
That's everything they're saying on your side. My side is
talking about
the whole time.
About your audience.
Trolls. Tommy Crispy Sotomayor. Every third comment where he.
That's not the point that I'm making right now, though. The point I'm making is
your audience can do whatever they want to. I asked them earlier to just be honest and you're gonna keep saying stupid shit like that. It's not gonna show up on my screen. I'm not doing that.
Let me explain. Go.
Man, they got people trolling in both of their streams.
And we're trying to have a real fucking.
That's what motherfucker can't get shit done.
I'm asking your audience because one person hasn't done it yet. Name the article that Tommy Sotomayor referenced, or name the writer that wrote the article that Tommy Sotomayor referenced. Put some money on that, because I know you ain't got a name. You ain't got a name of the article.
Do him a favor. Any of the articles, you can go and find that woman who wrote that book on how to catch white men. You can go in all those articles.
How to catch white men?
Yeah, but that's not the answer. The answer is name the one that he specifically named.
I didn't specifically name one. No, I did not. I asked you.
So what I'm saying is this. What we do have is an actual reference.
But I can do what you just said. That ain't right, man.
That is right. It's all fair.
You asked me, can you do this? You said name the thing that I didn't do. I can several times.
Specifically out your mouth.
Yeah, they're arguing over a movie, yo. About what the movie is trying to say socially. Like, about social issues. I don't know. But then they got trolls in their stream. Like, it's digressing from a debate to an argument. But both of those guys are very argumentative, you know, and they're both strong opinions, strongly opinionated. Brother Polite and Tommy Sotomayor. I gotta go grab something to eat, so I'm thinking I may go put some toaster strudels in a toaster. How does that sound? Toaster strudels?
Your mouth feels sweet. Your throat refreshed. The finest leaf tobacco, mild, refreshing menthol, and the world's most thoroughly tested filter. That's Snow Fresh Filter Cool. Why don't you switch from hot to the Snow Fresh coolness of cool?
Weeds just make me rattlesnake mad. Now Roundup has a new sharpshooting wand. I'm sending them weeds to the great beyond. No need to punt, just point and shoot. Hit him in the leaves and it kills to the root. Ground fences, trees, even mulched beds. Because the only good weed is a weed that's dead.
Hi, my name is Jerry Cross. I'm a professor at Santa Clara University, graduate division. And I've made 4 other propaganda videos, and about 300,000 people have watched them. So today we're talking about Roundup and Monsanto. So a little background. Roundup is an herbicide, one of the most potent ever developed. It kills a lot of vegetation. And there are products that have been made that have been genetically engineered to withstand the toxicity of Roundup. Corn, soybeans, alfalfa, canola, cotton. When they say Roundup Ready alfalfa, they mean the alfalfa does not, Mother Nature did not make this alfalfa. This alfalfa has been engineered to withstand this toxic herbicide. That's why it's ready. It's Roundup Ready. It's ready to be sprayed. Okay? So, here's how it works. Roundup is technically called glyphosate, It enters the leaves, stems, gravitates to the roots of a plant, killing it thoroughly. It kills virtually everything. Roundup, quote, is a non-selective herbicide that kills all vegetation. Well, that's a sweeping statement. According to Newsweek, quote, it is the most heavily used agricultural chemical in the history of the world. About 300 million pounds of glyphosate are applied each year. Whoa. Now, the question arises. If soybeans are harvested and turned into baby formula, and then a baby eats that or drinks that soy-based baby formula from Roundup Ready soybeans, is that okay? A soybean field has been sprayed between 2 and 4 times with Roundup. And between 88 to 92% of all soy in the United States is GM soy. So there's a high probability that baby is ingesting soy milk that has been sprayed 2 to 4 times with a toxic herbicide. Okay. Between 0 and 3 years of age, the brain undergoes an amazing period of development, continues to grow. It produces 700 new neural connections every second. So with that backdrop, this child is ingesting this substance. Now the government, Monsanto, the EPA, the FDA, says it's okay for human consumption. But it would cause you to wonder, wouldn't it? Okay, so we wonder, but those are our doubts. So approaching this subject, if you notice, since 1990, that'll be a critical year. That's when they started spraying Roundup. Heart disease is down 20% since 1980. I mean, heart disease deaths are down 20%. Oh, we have stents, we have statin drugs, we have better education, better treatment, and congratulations to us. The same is true with cancer. Its rate of death is down 25%. Again, better treatment, better knowledge, better skills, better care. Wonderful. But there are some diseases that are increasing since 1990. There are 12 diseases that are mysteriously increasing since 1990.
Alzheimer's, thyroid
now that
cancer.
On your upper left,
autism.
in the corner of your screen, is Roundup, and how often Roundup starts getting sprayed in earnest around 1990 and has increased 200 times since that time. Well, there have been some diseases that have paralleled that process. Lymphoma, kidney failure, breast cancer, asthma, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, thyroid cancer, Crohn's disease, Alzheimer's. They have all gone up rather mysteriously. So here you see population increase.
I knew
thyroid cancer.
Yeah, thyroid cancer, Alzheimer's, autism, breast cancer. But he said a lot of other things. In the past couple 20 years, like our cancer has just been spreading rampant. It's the food.
Paralleled that process.
lymphoma, kidney failure, breast
Lymphoma?
cancer,
Kidney
asthma,
failure,
Parkinson's,
Jesus.
multiple sclerosis, thyroid cancer, Crohn's disease, Alzheimer's. They have all gone up, and all gone up rather mysteriously.
And yeah, rather mysteriously. And on top of that, like Alzheimer's is like younger people are getting it. Like Alzheimer's is a degenerative brain disorder it normally sets in people in like their late 80s. Like if you're lucky to live a long life, yo, like it's 80 or 90, you know what I'm saying? But now it's like they're finding Alzheimer's in people like late 40s and 50 years old. Like what the fuck? It's weird, yo. Our food is poison. The movie doesn't make sense. I never watched that shit anyway. Just like he said, oh, the first week, some people go see it, then like you hear what it's about, and then it either makes you want to see it or don't. And then like once I heard what it was about, I'm like, I don't want to watch that. But then Jordan Peele, he has a cartoon on Netflix called Big Mouth. I actually watched that. I've never seen the movie Get Out, and I have Netflix. I have all the fucking streaming devices and shit, so I can watch it anytime I want to, but it just never seemed like something I wanted to watch, yo. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Seriously. So here you see population increasing 1.3 times since 1990. But lymphoma, kidney failure, and breast cancer are up twice as much. More than population. Why? We don't understand why. What are the causes? Celiac disease, thyroid cancer, asthma and Parkinson's and MS. Notice Parkinson's and MS are neurological. They're up 2.5 times more, and while population is only up 1.3 times. Celiac disease, thyroid cancer, almost 3 times more than 1990. Crohn's disease, 5 times more. Alzheimer's, 10 times more than 1990. Autism, 22 times more than 1990. What is going on? What is the cause? No one knows. We speculate. There are scientific studies. There are no answers yet. So, since this is a bit of a controversial talk, every once in a while I'm going to show you the references that support this. I'm just not making this stuff up. So, I teach research methods at the graduate division at my university occasionally, and I teach my students about correlations. They do not mean things are caused. They mean things are related. If one variable goes up and the other variable goes up with it, that's interesting. It's statistically significant, but it doesn't mean that that causes that, always. It could be, but it doesn't necessarily. It's kind of like guilt by association. So some correlations are really funny, like the divorce rate in Maine is positively correlated to the per capita consumption of margarine. Does that mean if you're getting divorced, you have this incredible need to eat margarine? Or does it mean that if you're eating margarine, you're putting your marriage at risk? Neither. Okay? That's not the story. Okay? It's just a coincidence, but it's a statistically significant coincidence. But some correlations are really, really important. The number of cigarettes smoked and lung cancer in the 50s and 60s, the correlations were known, but the causality had not been established with animal studies. But there was a strong correlation between the consumption of cigarettes and deaths from lung cancer. So correlations are important. Now look at some of these correlations. This is a correlation between Roundup or glyphosate and autism. The orange line is glyphosate and the yellow is autism. And they go together, don't they? The correlation is 0.98. Now, a correlation goes from 0 to 1, or 0 to -1. It doesn't go above 1. So 985 is like, as Trump would say, huge. A huge positive correlation. They're going together. Okay? The more you spray, the more autism you get. We cannot imply causality, but we can sure notice this coincidence. Here's celiac disease in Roundup, correlation 0.97. Thyroid cancer in Roundup, correlation 0.98. Deaths from kidney disease and Roundup, 0.96. One goes up, the other goes up. The less the spraying, the fewer cases. The more the spraying, the more the cases. We cannot assume one causes the other. That's the danger of correlations, okay? So it's guilt by association. Like, let's say that O.J. Simpson is accused of murder, and you're a friend of O.J. Simpson's and used to hang around with him all the time. You're correlated with O.J. So does that mean you're an accessory to the crime? Does that mean that you also murdered those people? That you are an accomplice? Well, you are a person of interest to the police. That's what a correlation is. It's sort of like creating a person of interest. Monsanto and Roundup are persons of interest or entities of interest. But let's give Monsanto's case. Let's do our best to put Monsanto's case in perspective. If I was a Monsanto spokesman, I would say, hey, wait a minute, don't dump these 12 cases, 12 diseases on us, okay? Take a look at that graph. That blue line represents ragweed, and the yellow represents CO2. We're talking about global warming here. Global warming, CO2 produces more ragweed. More ragweed creates more respiratory illnesses like asthma and allergies. So don't blame it on us. There are other things that correlate with these diseases, not just Roundup. Don't blame us for something that you cannot prove belongs. All right, so Scott Partridge, Monsanto vice president, said the very long and well-established history of safe glyphosate use over 40 years in more than 160 countries shows clearly that these claims are supported neither by the science nor the facts. All right, 1999 reviews on the safety of glyphosate and Roundup herbicide that have been conducted by several regulatory agencies and scientific institutions worldwide have concluded there is no indication of any human health concerns. Thank you, Monsanto. That's one person's one case presented. Fine. But then there's the people's case.
Yo, DJ, what up?
And it has a different coloring. People are saying these diseases, these 12 diseases, are increasing and correlated to Roundup spraying. There will be 64,000 new cases of thyroid cancer this year that probably would not have existed in
Working on the shadows
new
for
cases
the
of
table.
celiac disease.
Trying to get some wood grain effects in there.
1.6 million will be diagnosed with autism, which according to the CEDC is the fastest growing disability in the United States. 75,000 new cases of lymphoma.
They're working on getting the lines on the books as straight as I possibly can. I've been doing that literally like all morning. Damn, I've been here almost 3 hours already. But just trying to line up the books and getting the edges of the tables lined up nice. This is the second layer of paint I'm applying to here, so I'm trying to sharpen up some of the details. You can see
if you add it all up, that's 4.6
Okay, I can't talk
million.
over you guys. So you can see the really good contrast now. This is still just the first layer of paint. This is dry. And as I start to apply the second layer of paint, the wood grain starts to pop out from the flat surface here. And so I just, initially in the underpainting, nothing's really crisp or sharp or really defined. It's just kind of blocked in real quick. So now I do want to go in there and kind of tighten up my lines and sharpen up my angles and start breaking out some of those midtones a little bit. So I've just been working my way, getting some of the beginner details on the books, getting basically the light and shadow proper on the book and getting the angles and lines right. And I'll let that layer dry. Then the next thing I'll do when I come back is I'll start lettering the books and getting the first layer of all the letter print words on there, the titles and everything. I just want to work on the shadows around this table.
this year we're going to come down with these diseases that might not have come down with them in 1990. Now, the People's Case, if this represents the people, this is an organization that is sponsoring a signature campaign to ask the EPA and the FDA to stop the spraying of Roundup. Well, there's a long distance between here and there. There's a lot of money involved in this. But they quote an MIT researcher in their campaign to stop Monsanto's Roundup. And their MIT researcher says, I'm certain at this point that glyphosate is the most important factor in an alarming number of epidemic diseases. All right, so we have two stories, but we don't have proof. We don't have cause and effect yet. There are a few studies. The Journal of Food and Chemical Toxicology did a 2-year study that fed rats GMA maize, corn, sprayed with Roundup. They died 2 to 3 times more than the control rats who didn't. They had more tumors, more liver and kidney issues than the controls. Well, that gets closer to causality. Roundup was twice as lethal on the death of amphibians as other pesticides. Another study, glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup weed killer, causes fatty liver disease in laboratory rats at very low doses. The study is unique in that it is the first to show a causative link between the consumption of Roundup and a serious disease. Well, that's a causative study. There are lots more that have to be done for one to make that scientific statement that Roundup does cause these things. There's a lot more research that has to be done. Now, outside of science and research, there are
So I got the date for my show. It's going to be March from next year. So I'm pretty sure I can get a couple more shows done and get a few more paintings done before then. I just got to figure out what I'm going to show in December.
Things that have happened in the last 3 years that are really causes for alarm. Here are a few. 2013, there's an amendment to a funding bill. It's called the Monsanto Protection Act. Most people didn't even notice it was tucked in the language of this much larger bill. And it gives Monsanto generous legal protections against litigation. President Obama signed it. In 2013, Monsanto was one of the largest contributors to Congress, spending $6.9 million. According to one source, quote, Monsanto outspends all other agribusinesses on efforts to persuade Congress and the public to maintain the industrial status quo. In 2015, the World Health Organization determined that Roundup was a, quote, probable human carcinogen. Ooh. Now, think about that baby who's having that soy infant formula. And now the World Health Organization says that's a probable human carcinogen. In 2015, President Obama appointed Michael Taylor to head the Food and Drug Administration. Michael Taylor was a lobbyist for Monsanto. And now he's the head of the agency that is supposed to protect us from poisons and toxins. Isn't that the fox guarding the hen house, Mr. President? Now, this story is scary, and I hope this comes from the people who are suing Monsanto. An official named Jess Rowland, who worked for the EPA, the government, not Monsanto. He was doing a study on whether Roundup caused non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he was quoted as telling a Monsanto executive, if I can kill this, I should get a medal. Well, they're quoting him a lot about that statement. And Rowland's study concluded that glyphosate has no relationship to cancer. In 2016, a quiet FDA study revealed that there's residue of Roundup that is found on infant oatmeal cereal. It was found on Ritz crackers. It was found on Kellogg's Special K, and it was found on chocolate cookies. Residue, you're actually getting a few parts per billion. In 2017, Monsanto was accused of ghostwriting academic papers on the safety of Roundup. It was alleged that the EPA was unaware of Monsanto's deceptive authorship practice. Well, there are some more sources to back up those statements. So, an interim conclusion is we're not indicting Monsanto. In my view, the science is not there to make that statement. But if you were to talk about the issue of probable cause, is there a sufficient amount of data that has been collected that makes you think there is sufficient reason to study this issue? I mean, if the World Health Organization says it's a problem, doesn't that mean that the United States government, through the FDA or the NSF, should make a massive effort to study this question for the American people without scientists from Monsanto or scientists from the other side, but independent scientists with no conflicts of interest? That to me is a rational, reasonable conclusion. It needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. Now, this is the story about propaganda, right? That's the title of this talk. So where's the propaganda, Jerry? Well, let's talk about propaganda now. I like to use a certain database, a reference, when I do work on literacy. It's called the Vanderbilt Television Archives. They have videotaped, recorded, archived virtually every evening news television broadcast back to the 80s. So if you want to look up Brian Williams, who was talking about something, you can find it here. You could even buy a videotape of that show. So to use this, you go to you enter a search term in that little box. So I typed in Roundup, and there it is. Roundup was a commercial on CBS Evening News, May 10th, 2014, at 5:45 p.m. And it was a commercial for Roundup that appeared on that evening news show. Okay, that's interesting information. So I went back to 2010. There were 220 entries for Roundup in the last 7 years. 220 times Roundup has appeared on primetime news broadcasts. But this one was a commercial that appeared on NBC Evening News at 5:42 p.m. Okay? So the question is, in my other propaganda talks, I talked about techniques of propaganda. And one of them was called distraction and denial, meaning take a look over here because we don't want you to look over here. Distraction and denial. So all of these things are going to keep your mind busy while this is not going to be seen, and it's going to come under the veil of denial. Well, let's take a look at Roundup commercials versus Roundup news stories in the last 7 years on the evening news. Well, about 217 commercials for Roundup appear in that database, and 3 stories. 3 actual stories about Roundup. One of them was in Oregon, they had difficulty exporting wheat to Japan because it was sprayed by Roundup. The question is, are we having so few stories about Roundup because the news broadcast companies do not want to bite the hand that feeds them? After all, that's 217 commercials for the evening news that appeared. So, more distraction and denial. Here are some stories that happened in the same 7-year period that if you're watching the television news, you're a couch potato, you watch it all the time, what's going into your head? Well, there were about 220 stories of rape. Okay, Steubenville, Ohio, Colorado. These are stories about rape. There were stories about Bill Cosby, 180 stories about Bill Cosby and his issue with women and drugging women and having sex with women he allegedly drugged. Then there's the story of Anthony Weiner, a congressman, bright, intelligent, articulate fellow, but he takes a picture of himself in his underwear with a swollen genitals behind the underwear, and he thinks he's sending it to a girl. He's married, but he's sending it to a lady, presses the wrong button, and it goes out to the world. He apologizes, I'm sorry, never happen again, and then it happens again. The Kardashians, I have no idea what they do. They're always in the news, but are they actresses or actors or sports figures or do they sing or dance? I do not know what the Kardashians do, but they seem to always be in the news. Distraction and denial. Kardashian. O.J. Simpson has been in prison. He hasn't been doing anything except being in prison. He was on the national news 37 times. And poor little Roundup only gets 3 stories in 7 years. So this is a pretty good example of distraction and denial. I'm a psychologist, and I want to know what's behind it. What are we actually doing? What are these themes here? Well, rape and Bill Cosby have to do with sex and violence. Anthony Weiner has to do with sex. The Kardashians have to do with sex and celebrity. O.J. Simpson has to do with murder. Murder, sex, violence, celebrity. That's Pulp Fiction. That's what you find in romance novels. That's what you find on the National Enquirer. This is the evening news with Scott Pelley. And what are we watching? Are we really watching reality? Or are we watching the reality that they choose to entertain us with and distract us with? I think that's a very legitimate question. For every single story about Rhonda, there were 275 sexy stories about murder and fame and the Kardashians half naked here and half naked there. Evening news. So who are the people who are responsible for this? Who's bringing us this stuff? Okay, who are the presidents of those news networks? Well, there they are. Those are the guys who are in charge of telling you about the real world. They reach 27 million people every evening. These 5 white males sit around a desk, probably, with their executive producers, and Scott Pelley's right there with them, and say, what are we going to tell the American people tonight? What stories will we tell them in the 22 minutes of their consciousness that we have? Will we be reporting on the famine in the Sudan? Or should we do the story on rape in Steubenville, Ohio? So they're making those decisions for us. Okay. Now, are you saying, is that fake news? Well, I don't think it's fake news. There are 170,000 rapes every year, 473 rapes every day to choose from. You don't have to fake it. If you want to show a story about rape, you've got a lot to choose from. No reason to make it up. 223 primetime features on rape since 2010. Is that representative of all the rapes in the country? I don't think so. There were only 29 stories of black women who were raped in those last 7 years, who made primetime evening news. 1 in 5 black women in this country has been raped. Okay? This is not representative of the academic study of rape. These are stories that have hooks, that have something cute about them. A group of white army recruits raped this woman. Now that could be a story. A Facebook rape where somebody filmed the rape on Facebook. That's a good story. But a run-of-the-mill rape we're not interested in. So even our stories of rape are distorted. They're not representative of the rapes that occur in this country. So the bottom line here is not that our evening news is bringing us reality. It is not. It is a profit center. Here is a graph. I hope you can see it. At the top is The Big Bang Theory, one of the most popular shows on American television. At the bottom, the Carrie Diaries, or whatever that is. And this is how much they charge for a 30-second commercial. So if you have a show that has a large market share, many viewers, The Big Bang Theory charges over $330,000 for a 30-second advertising spot. Okay? That's where they make their money. The Vampire Diaries, they're not that popular. You can get 30 seconds of commercial time for about $50,000. So the issue is the news media has become a profit center for the networks. And so the number of viewers means more market share, more eyeballs, and more revenue. So NBC is leading the pack currently with some 9 million viewers. And CBS only has 7.5 million. And poor Wolf Blitzer and his moral crusade against political incorrectness, only 1.2 million viewers. So if you want to buy a commercial on NBC's evening news, which is what Monsanto often buys, it costs more money because they have more viewers, and they have more viewers because they have more sensational stories. Now, Ted Koppel was interviewed by Bill O'Reilly, and quite to Bill O'Reilly's suspense, Ted Koppel took a bite out of Bill O'Reilly with something that I completely support.
And you know who made it irrelevant? You did. You have changed the television landscape over the past 20 years. You took it from being objective and dull to being subjective and entertaining.
Yeah, so the news is obviously entertaining, and the consequence of that, however, is that it distorts our perception of the world. So let's say we're one of those 5 guys, white males, sitting around a table with our executive producers, and we're going to say, what story are we going to give them today? Well, there's Bill Cosby. Oh, Flash. Yes, scandal, sensational. Look at all those women. Wow. That's a story with legs. We've done it 180 times. Let's do it 181 times. When there's another story, Roundup. That's a map of the United States and how much the United States has been saturated by this herbicide. Do you want to do a story on how the country has been saturated by what could be a very toxic substance? I don't think so. It doesn't have that je ne sais quoi that we're looking for. And besides, they sponsor the evening news. What are you, crazy? So we don't see certain things, and that's what the results of propaganda are. We have distorted perceptions of the world, misperceptions, delusions about global warming, denial. We're living in a fog. We have lost contact with reality, and we, as one guy said, we are entertaining ourselves to death and masquerading it as if this is the news of the world. So thank you very much for watching.
This event is for people that want to get into real estate.
It wasn't just, here's how to flip a house. It's here's how to have a successful business.
It will change your life, and it'll put you on the right track.
I was able to buy and renovate 10 properties in just 1 year while still working a full-time job.
That I wanted financial freedom, I wanted to get out of that rat race, and I had.
But it didn't happen. And one of the reasons is because we were using that soft language, that language that takes the life out of life. And it is a function of time. It does keep getting worse. Give another example. Sometime during my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. I wasn't notified of this. No one asked me if I agreed with it. It just happened. Toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Sneakers became running shoes. Information became directory assistance. The dump became the landfill. Car crashes became automobile accidents. Partly cloudy became partly sunny. Used cars became previously owned transportation. Room service became guest room dining. And constipation became occasional irregularity.
At Marquette University, administrators demanded a student take down from his dorm a quote from a dangerous subversive that read, "As Americans, we must always remember that we all have a common enemy, an enemy that is dangerous, powerful, and relentless." I refer, of course, to the federal government. What dangerous fifth columnist could have written such a thing? Would you believe Dave Barry? So we wondered, what would Dave Barry think of all this? We caught up with him at the offices of Miami Herald, where we asked him his thoughts on the case, on freedom of speech, and on the censorship of humor columnists on college and university campuses today.
My name is Dave Barry. I'm a humor writer. Free speech is important to me because I've sort of made my living.
Yo, Dave Barry wrote this book called Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Our teacher used to make us read his articles in the morning at school. I'm gonna get out of here. I got some chores and shit I need to do. I'm not sure if I'll be back this afternoon or not, but if this is your first time in the stream, definitely subscribe to the channel. I'll be working on this wood table some more over the next couple of days, trying to get those wood grains to pop out. Yeah, so subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you guys know when I'm going live. Also, I've started a Patreon channel. If you guys want to donate to the stream, it's just basically my name on Patreon. The link is on... Oh, I gotta put that link on my Facebook page. Dang it. It's not up there yet, but you can go to... I did post it on my Facebook page, but you can go there and grab the link to it. And like I said, if I'm not back in here this later this afternoon or this evening doing the stream, I'll definitely be back here in the morning. I really couldn't sleep this morning, so the stream is kind of earlier than I normally stream. I normally start streaming right about now, but I've already been in here for a little over 3 hours, so I'll definitely have a long day today. Like I said, there's a good chance that I may be back in here. Follow me on Instagram and my community Facebook page and the YouTube channel. And like I said, I'll be back in here later on. This piece is coming out really good though. I'm really liking all the texture on the bricks. I'm liking the whole reflection in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? I'm starting to get the shadows and shading on the book so you can see how the shadows are falling. You can see the little bit of light peeking through on the corners, and how these deep shadows are falling across the table. So it's starting to really come alive now and look really good. And this is the fun part. So definitely can't wait to work on this some more. And catch you guys the next time.